SquareHammer.
Hello YouTube, hello SquareHammers. Today we are talking to several new friends and one old friend of mine. We are going to be talking about the Las Vegas Open. Below me right here we have Andy. He is the head TO of the Las Vegas Open. Down this way actually. We have Myles. He placed best overall at the LVO and he ran the doubles event on Sunday, which was after the GT. And then to my, I think y'all see it to my right. So to my right, even though I'm pointing to my left, we have Ernan, who placed second best general. We also would have tried to have third best general, which was Luna, but they weren't able to make it, so maybe next time. Okay, so below me is Andy. If you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself, your hobby, and how long you've been playing the game. Wow, nice. Which one was your favorite so far? Between that and now. Okay, sure. The internets. Hmm. Okay. I got some questions for you about, how you got in events and stuff like that, but let's get everyone introduced and then we can like kind of do a little around the world. What about I'll go this way. Ernan, how long have you been playing? What armies do you mostly focus on? I think we might be able to tell by your background, but how long have you been playing? What's your favorite edition? And yeah. Ooh. Hmm. You played Wood Elves? I don't remember that. Okay. Mine too. Mine too. Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Hmm. Is it? I know some of your hobbies. That's your favorite one? That's right. That's right. I will say Ernan is one of the biggest lore people I know, especially with 40K, but for fantasy as well. But he also loves doing the voices and like says the phrases and quotes from books and stuff all the time. It's like he's very loud, so you will hear it, and it's fun. He really gets into the immersion part of it. Yes, yes. Okay. Nice. What about you? What about you, Miles, down there? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nice. Mm-hmm. The Warpath. 1 second. Can y'all pause for a second? Uh, can y'all not hear anybody? Hold on. Son of a biscuit. Hold on. They say they can hear me, but they're having trouble hearing y'all. No! Dang it! Hold on. Hold on. You're. Oh no! Please don't. They can't hear that joke though. They can hear blue fine, but not others. Give me a second. Audio output capture device should be speakers. Can y'all say something?
Yeah, can you hear us?
Best.
Sure.
How's this going?
Best.
Can you hear
Okay.
us?
Let us know if y'all can hear that.
Can you guys hear us?
Oh my gosh. Guess what? We're gonna go around the world again. So if you thought you messed up saying something, well, you
Hey.
now you get your chance to fix it.
It'll never be as good the second time around.
That's fair. Not as natural. Let's see. I was able to edit it, and I think they should be able to hear us, so they can hear us now. Okay, so Andy, you get to restart. Please redo.
Cool. My name is Andy Garcia, and I started playing Warhammer, I think in 86, 87. Third edition in my parents' garage. Some of the guys that I played with then attended Alveo 2025, which is awesome. So
Nice.
I played third edition in my parents' garage and hosted and kind of was the rules guy. And then we all went to college and then came back and we were in like the Santa Monica area, part of Los Angeles, and so we started playing sixth edition then when we all got together again.
Nice.
The band got together. We played sixth edition. I started going to more events, mainly the LA Games Days and the LA GTs. And so a lot of the ideas that I had for running the Alveo came from the Los Angeles GTs that I attended back in the 2000s. And then I also ran my own events when seventh edition came out, ran my own campaigns, the Mighty Empires campaigns. If anybody remembers those, I ran about 8 Mighty Empires campaigns, and so I was kind of always the guy who hosted my friends. So
Okay.
we played in a small. We played in a couple places. We played in a small store called Aero Hobbies, and so the Aero Boys were actually represented at Alveo this year, and I also played at the LA Battle Bunker, which had about 20 some tables.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so a lot of that happened, and then during 10th edition, I moved to San Francisco for work, and so I've been in the Bay Area and kind of played 40K up until Old World came back. And as soon as Old World came back, I wanted to make sure that I can do everything I could to grow the community, to learn who can help me grow the community, to learn the pillars of the community, to learn, that's why, I was so happy to meet you and talk with you and that you came to our event. And, things like that are like my most important thing here is to just grow the community and make sure everybody's having fun.
And that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Sure. I will say I do feel dirty bringing the Bretonnians. That was just dirty. But so let's go to Ernan. We're going to go back around in the circle. Hopefully everyone can see the video and everything. So I'll probably just start the video from here when I edit it because clearly we had some technical issues, and that's on me because I don't do this all the time. So Ernan, when did you start playing? What armies do you like focusing on? What was your favorite edition? And boom, go.
So hey guys, my name is Ernan Rodriguez. Orlando, Florida's originally home. I started playing back in 94, 95. So hitting about 30 years. My friend Evan Riley got me into it back then in high school. And to bring it full circle, I brought him to LVO as my doubles partner, got him back into Old World once it started. So back then I played Wood Elves, Dwarves, Bretonnians for a little bit, but then I settled into Warriors of Chaos. and I've been Warriors of Chaos ever since in both fantasy, 40K, and Old World now. I'm an avid lore buff guy. I read all the Black Library books, so when the Old World was destroyed, it broke my heart, and I put the square bases up, and I was playing 40K for the longest time until last year when both BattleTech and Old World came back, two of my childhood games, and I was like, I don't think I've rolled 40K dice all last year. It's been nothing but SquareHammer for me, and
Because
you know,
you played BattleTech and Fantasy or the Old World at Adepticon, right?
I did.
Yeah, no 40K, but you played the other two.
Yep.
Right. You were so
Yep.
excited to have BattleTech. I can't remember you would come up to me like afterwards. You're like, look at this mech, man! Like you were so excited to play BattleTech. That's actually one game I only played a little bit as a kid, but it definitely had its home, I guess. But what about you, Miles, down here?
Yeah, hey everyone, I'm Miles O'Neill, and my voice is still shot from LVO, so apologies for that. But yeah, I grew up in Brisbane, Australia, and I used to play 6th edition Warhammer with my orcs and goblins back in the day. That's really what got me into it. I loved orcs and goblins, loved playing it, and I was really active online on The Warpath, which was an orc and goblin forum where I went by Zorg. So that was like my origin, and then I got out of the hobby for quite a while. And I'm really excited to be back with the old world. I think a lot of people have my story of being like, oh, hey, Warhammer's back. This is great. And I've had such a fun time getting into it. I'm in San Francisco Bay Area now, and there's a great community there. Lots of different communities actually, but a ton of us together, which has been super fun.
Okay.
I'm now playing Warriors of Chaos as well. My army is a converted army. They're a bunch of Cold One warriors riding, sorry, they're a bunch of Chaos warriors riding Cold Ones.
Right.
Taking a bit of inspiration from the old Lustria book where there are marauders riding the Cold Ones. So that sort of theme, but set in the Badlands. So I've just really enjoyed the hobby side of getting to do something a little bit unique and putting it all together and yeah, and going to these great events.
How many players do you think you have out there?
Hmm. Andy might be able to guess better than I. We're both in the Bay
Probably
Area.
around
I think we're
50,
at like
probably up to 50 maybe
A 50?
now.
And like, do they usually? I assume they don't all. Well, and you run
we're
events,
we're
right?
spread apart, right? It's like
Okay.
there's like a bunch of different groups of maybe 10 to 20 in San Francisco, like the
Right.
North Bay, the East Bay, the South Bay. But it's all pretty like it can all come together, which is great.
I think that's what kind of like what we have here. So in the Richmond, we have maybe half a dozen to a dozen, and then in North Carolina and like Virginia Beach, there are some, and then all the way up to Maryland and DC and Fredericksburg, there's like little sections of maybe 10 to 20 players that will like come together and play when we have like decent sized events. So it's interesting just how like we all congregate and like there's like little sections that we all do that. But so Andy, what made you start running to do events, and how did you get involved with LVO?
So it's so funny. I work for the visual effects industry. I work for Industrial Light and Magic, and so I came to San Francisco in 2010 to start working for them. I was working for other small companies in Sony Pictures for 10 years before that. So when I came
That's
there, I
cool.
was like, okay, I got to figure out who is, who are the people that are playing fantasy, right? I got to get my fantasy group again together and maybe run some events, and because I had been doing them in LA, but mainly like grow leagues and small RTTs and things like that. So I
Okay.
met a couple of people in my local game store, which was Gamescape San Francisco, and they were going to something called the Bay Area Open. So this was the very first Bay Area Open. It actually was held out in a barn in Antioch, which is like far east from where we lived, and that's where I met Reese and Frankie. And those guys are like the ones who created FLG, and so
Okay.
they were actually in our area, and so that's kind of why I was able to. At that time, I met them, and then during my 40K years, like the last 8 years, I had seen them every time I'd gone to their events. So I'd go to the Bay Area Open, I'd go to the SoCal Open, and I'd go to the LVO to play 40K. And
Okay.
so because I had already, they'd been my friends. So when Old World started, I kind of wanted to talk to them about just doing it, just, like host Old World at their events. And they said, well, we need a TO. And so that's when kind of Dylan and I just volunteered because we didn't think that they were going to get a TO.
Mm.
So at that point, it was just like, okay, well, I'll do it. If nobody's going to do it, I'm going to do it. So I
Okay.
didn't really want. I just wanted to be a player, quite honestly. I just, I enjoyed playing. at in the 40K events, and I just wanted to be a player in the old world events, but it just seemed that there wasn't anybody stepping up that had my experience. Um, and so I just was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then so just figure
Cool.
out like how to do it. And the things that bugged me, what I saw in 40K was that 40K seemed to get more about who won, who got the most amount of points, who got the most amount of points, who got the third most amount of points, and it wasn't ever like that for Old World. When we played Fantasy back in sixth and seventh edition, it was more about the hobby. It was more about sportsmanship. So I kind of wanted to bring that back. I wanted to bring back the sportsmanship scores.
Perfect.
I wanted to bring back the paint scores. I wanted the person who won best overall to be like, like a player that we all wanted to play against, like a great player,
Aspire
probably kick
to. Yeah.
kick kick our ass, but also has a great painted army, and it's just a fun person to play against. And so that's kind of that's our philosophy behind running these tournaments.
Well, it's cool that
So
on the opposite ends of the country, we over here have the same idea because that's exactly what we went with. We went with that you can have someone who's best general who kills you and all whatever, whatever, but best overall is they might not win every game or they might not win by a large margin, but they have at least a beautiful army, high sportsmanship score, good list comp, etc. And that just puts them above. Like, this is the player that you want to aspire to be because they are the best overall in all the standings. And because that is like the not the one on the pedestal, but it's like that's the one you want to aspire to be to play with. Like exactly what you said. Like you want to play against that person because the immersion is good, because their army looks good, and they're just fun to play with. I completely
yeah,
agree. Completely agree.
yeah. I'm
Okay.
glad that happened like that. I'm
Oh,
glad because
it's the way to do it.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, so questions I want to go with. So obviously, I don't know if y'all heard me say, but oh, this way. Myles got best overall. Myles, we'll start with you since you are the tournament champion, in my opinion, and I think Andy's as well, the tournament champion. So please tell us your list. And oh, by the way, so I actually got to play Myles first, but I'll be releasing a video of like our game and then like some other content as we go. But this will be if you want to tell me about your list, the games you played, any judge rulings that you went with or agreed with or didn't agree with, cool moments in your games and yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, sounds great. And just quickly, I'm seeing a little Zoom thing saying we've got 6 minutes left. I don't know if anyone else says that on their screen, if it's just me, but that might cause
You
a problem
did
with
you
six
did see
minutes.
that because I didn't pay for it, so I literally just went ahead and paid for Zoom real quick just for a month. So
Okay, well, hopefully it doesn't cut me off in 6 minutes,
it
but
better
I'll
freaking
probably
not.
be shorter than that anyway. So yeah, okay, let me talk about my list. So just to start, yeah, I went 4-2 overall, and in tournament placings I came 10th. That's at the top of the 4-2s. I think the 4-2s were like 10th to 19th, but I had really high battle points, because I had a lot of really big wins and a couple of really close losses. So I had a great weekend, really, really fun games. And yeah, I was a little bit shocked, but also very happy to get the best overall prize, with I guess good sportsmanship and painting scores from my opponents, which I of course very much appreciate. But yeah, I had fantastic games. I loved every single game. I brought a list that was pretty competitive in my mind, but not like the fully, completely perfectly optimized chaos list. And I'm really interested to hear from Ernan because I think he went down a very different chaos path, but I think mine's maybe the more traditional one. So we got the big Chaos Lord on a dragon. We got the Enchanting Aura to help with Monster Slayer, to strike first, try and kill them first. Got the Ogre Blade on him. All those sort of like classic things. Um, I had the Sorcerer on a sorry, just a Chaos Barded Steed
Okay.
with Infernal Puppet, which is the best item in the game as far as I'm concerned. It really shuts
Best
down
in the
and
whole game, huh?
I think it's very, very good.
Okay.
It's very good at shutting down magic, which can make a big difference.
Sure.
Um, I also have the Brazen Collar on my dragon. So that plus the Infernal Puppet really limits some of the ways that people try and take out the dragon. For example, if you've got those big poison arrow blocks, they really want to get off their
Plague of Rust or
some of
something.
their, yeah, Plague of Rust or other spells like that.
Yeah.
Or things like Vile Tide or things like illusion magic. All of those, the magic resistance from the collar really helps. For my core, I guess is where I deviate a little bit. I have a block of Chaos Warriors, classic Chaos Warriors. I gave them the Taskmaster Scourge. which is an item on the champion that allows them to potentially move, get extra movement each turn, which I think makes them considerably better than they would be otherwise. They're a reasonably chunky block, which means they're actually a source of real combat resolution, which I think can be really helpful in certain matchups. In other matchups, they are a very juicy target that people's dragons immediately go for. And I think the trick to using them well is to play into that and use them as bait to
Okay.
draw people in and control their movement because they're going for that block. Which, can work well or not, depends what happens with the dice. Uh, and then yeah, I've got some Marauder Horsemen that are skirmishing to help like redirect things and do skirmisher shenanigans.
Kind of
Got some
protecting your
Warhounds.
wizard too, I think, right?
The wizard can't actually, well, if I'm in open order, the wizard can join them.
Right.
If they're in skirmish, the wizard can't because it's heavy cavalry and they're light cavalry.
Hmm.
Usually I have them separate, just to give the wizard that full flexibility. But against shooting heavy lists, I'll sometimes actually put the wizard in the warriors or something else just to give it a little bit more security.
But he doesn't get a lookout sir if he's in the warrior block, right?
No, just so that he can't be individually targeted. Because if
Gotcha.
you're near
Gotcha.
the five Marauder Horsemen, all they have to do is kill one of those,
Yeah.
and then they can target you.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, or for example against Pillar of Fire, which is a good segue into my best of
Such
best
a good
moment of
spell.
the tournament, perhaps. Um, yeah, and then so going down in my special and rare, I have a chosen Chaos Knights.
Okay.
I gave them Brazen Collar as well as again, because I think the main counter to the Chosen Knights, one of the best things you can do against them is cast some of those nasty spells. And then I have a Gorbeast Chariot and a Gigantic Chaos Spawn. The Gigantic Chaos Spawn is amazing with its random movement. It's got a ton of utility. The Chariot is definitely an unusual choice. I think people underestimate how strong it can be, and it can actually be quite good at zoning people because people are really don't love really try hard to not give chariots the charge,
Yeah.
which I think sometimes they try too hard and overcorrect for that, which is an interesting thing too. So that's my whole list for the tournament. I played you first round blue. That was a very tough
We
starting
did.
game. We could talk a lot about
Good
it.
for the
I think
lady. No.
one of the most exciting moments was my chosen knights fleeing off the board turn one from a terror test to the green knight. That was pretty exciting.
So busted. So
Um,
stupid.
and then we had an interesting game where we sort of like avoided my dragon avoided the peg knights and vice versa. So we
Yeah.
killed each other's enemies, and you came out ahead. So that was a bit of a rough start to be like, okay, great opponent round one, tough matchup. I'm playing down a game.
But you
Following on from
submarined.
that,
That's pretty good.
I did a fair amount of submarining.
Yeah.
Had a bunch of pretty strong games where my list was in a pretty dominant position. But just to call out like a couple of really fun moments, I think against in my round three, I played Jordan, who is a Dark Elf player from the Bay Area. He got a turn one Pillar of Fire with a Focus Familiar that gave it a 30-inch range.
Whew.
He used his once per game reroll to get it off, and he managed to, on his first turn, send a pillar through my entire army, which was not prepared to block that. Which is actually not that bad against Chaos. We got a lot of T4 stuff. It's not the end of the world. But he did spike off on the wizard,
Okay.
and turn one killed my wizard in one shot with that pillar. So
Wow.
that made a big difference and made the game a lot trickier than it was going to be.
I assume your puppet wasn't able to stop it because the familiar you kept yourself out of range, or
Yeah, because the familiar he was out of range. Or I think he failed the first roll, but then he used that re-roll and got a high roll, and I get over it. So
okay,
it worked well. Um,
nasty.
yeah, but that was a ton of fun. And then in my fourth round game, the first game of the second day, I played another Bay Area opponent. His name's John Doyle Mason, who was a fantastic dwarf player. We had actually played in the finals of a tournament that Andy ran like leading up to LVO.
Gotcha.
And I had beat him, and he had learnt a fair number of things from that and knew how to come at me this second time.
Okay.
He got some good shooting off, killed a bunch of things on my side, and then had a big block of dwarves in the middle with tons of characters that I just wasn't able to get through without enough pieces. So it was a very close game, but he ended up coming out on top, and that was my second loss. Yeah, and then I was able to win my last two games that were both pretty hard fought too, including against Jamil's Empire gun line with Demigryph Knights, which is actually a bit of a tough matchup for me with a bunch of cannon shots, but I made some ward saves and he failed some leadership tests, and that's how the dice go sometimes.
Yes.
So it was a really, really fun event. Yeah, I had a ton of fun doing each of the games, and there were just so many beautiful armies on display, and it's so great to see such a big old world event. And then previously I had volunteered to help run the doubles event, so that's what I did on the
Okay.
last day. Yeah.
And we can get into that after like Ernan talks about his experience. Ernan, what you got? How are
All
your
right, so
games? All that good stuff.
so yeah, as Myles said, I also play Warriors of Chaos. My list is a little different. Like we talked earlier in the intro, harkening back to the early days, I remember Hero Hammer when you could have 3 ward saves on a Dwarf Rune Lord and the black, and you know the rune of spite that would bounce wounds back to you, right? So I remember building those like 500-point lords, and I'm like, man, that's a lot of points. And I know the meta for Warriors of Chaos is that tooled up Lord on a dragon. And I said to myself, I'm not taking that. I'm not taking the Lord on the dragon. I'm gonna figure something else out. And my goals for LVO was, and I told Blue this going into it, I want to be able to kill a dragon without a dragon and show that you can, you can play decent Warriors of Chaos without. No offense to anybody else. I got what I asked for. So my first 3 opponents all had dragons in their lists. My first opponents, I fought high elves, and then Warriors of Chaos. Each had a dragon. So, but the dragon turns out the dragons and the high elves, they're different calibers because I killed a sun dragon in my first game, and I'm like, this is easy. Then I ran into a star dragon in my second game, and that was a totally different experience.
Yeah.
Whatsoever. So they do come in levels. For my list, I have a Zeech level 4 with a Spell Familiar, and of course Infernal Puppet and Ruby Ring. Chose Battle Magic for that because, frankly, I think it's the best lore overall. For Warriors of Chaos, 4 out of the 5 spells are just really good utility. And then if you get one of those other ones, you can just drop it for Blue Fire of Zeech, which I think is the best magic missile in the entire game. He was my general. Then I had a level 2 with a lore familiar, and he's Zeech as well, and he chooses Demonology. And in all 6 games, he chose Steed of Shadows and Demonic Vigor. Steed of Shadows gives an infantry unit fly 12, and Demonic Vigor gives a unit +1 move, +1 initiative, +1 toughness. So when those dragons fly at me and my unit of warriors with my 2 sorcerers, because they get +1 to cast because they're Zeech, flies past them, then it's just a ring around the rosy as we're chasing each other. But I'm able to double move most games. I think 5 out of the 4 games I managed to get Arcane Urgency, which is a battle spell that lets you move a second time. So when you're flying 12, you can put some distance between yourself. Everyone thinks it's just dragons that fly, but you can fly an entire brick of Warriors of Chaos.
It's such an interesting game that we can do that. It feels so weird. Like you could fly 48 inches with like an infantry block. It just seems so crazy.
But then you can't cast magic if you do that, Blue. But it's
for sure.
It's usually, as Myles said, so I could fly up the flank on turn 1 and launch a pillar of fire straight down that flank all the way across. I too agree that the puppet is great. I enjoy the puppet for the extra potential miscasts that it causes on your opponent. At least 3 times my opponents had to drop a 6 to eat those double ones for miscasts during my game. So yeah, the puppet and Ruby Ring, you'll see that bad boy everywhere. I don't think there's army that goes in the battle without a Ruby Ring.
Why? I don't think it affects the Ruby Ring, if I'm not mistaken.
No. I'm just saying, like, for good items.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
For good items. Okay. Like I said, I have a block of warriors, swords, and boards. Mark of Zeech. As long as there's 10 of them, they give both the sorcerers in the unit +1 to cast. I have 2 units of Forsaken, Mark of Slanesh, which gives them Swift Stride. Arguably, I think the best core unit for Warriors of Chaos are the Forsaken. It's just that they're really hard to find. Like a lot of people that had Forsaken in their army had a kit bash They're Forsaken. I'm literally kit bashing another 10 right now. Great units. Then I had 2 units of Dragon Ogres with great weapons. No champions, because in my tests against all the local guys with dragons, they would just challenge out the champion and kill the Dragon Ogre champion, and my 2 other Dragon Ogres would just sit there and lose combat. So no Dragon Ogre champions. And as Myles said, I ran 2 spawns, 1 Porn, 1 Nurgle. I like having a lot of different tools. Just the different marks makes them different. Nurgle gives you poison and regen, so a lot of staying power. The Corn gives you impact hits and killing blow. And since the killing blow is on the spawn itself, it works on all its attacks. So it's the same model or same profile, but it's just 2 different tools. But funny stuff in my game was the Corn spawn running into 5 Dragon Princes and murdering 3 of them on the charge.
Ooh, ouch.
Yep, that was good.
Poor pointy ears.
I also enjoyed shooting a Dragon Ogre Shaggoth with the blackened plate with 4 magic missiles for 3 turns and putting 1 wound on it because all my spells were flaming. And this thing had a
3 up
ward.
Gross.
Against the rest of the army got pretty beat up, but his Dragon Ogre Shaggoth just stood there in the middle of the board screaming to the heavens.
Come. How did your aspiring champion do? Your BSB?
So I use so I have a Nurgle BSB with on a chariot who's with a great weapon, Mark of Nurgle, so you have to re-roll 6s to hit.
And I do have a question about that. When some people I saw someone commented on your list with the Chaos Chariot. Your Chaos Chariot isn't Mark of Nurgle, so I know somewhere in the FAQ it talks about marks on like multiple models. I don't know how that affects that thing. Does anyone know? Either of you two?
So for the Mark of Nurgle, it doesn't affect the chariot. So for example, the Mark of Corn gives you Frenzy and gives you an extra attack, and it specifically says it doesn't affect the crew or the steeds, right? They don't the halberdiers don't get an extra attack. But when you take a chariot for the upgrade for a character, it becomes basically his mount. So the Mark of Nurgle on the character says he has Mark of Nurgle. He's you have to reroll 6s when you do your attacks against him.
Gotcha.
You don't need to mark the chariot if you're going Nurgle, because you can't attack the chariot by itself. The chariot just adds 4 wounds to the character.
So how did he do? Were you happy with him being like, he doesn't have a special banner, right? It's just a BSB?
No. I have ran him with the war banner in the past just for combat res, but not enough points to this. Being a BSB came in clutch multiple times where he either tied or only lost by 1. I use him as bait. Him and the Forsaken, I send them screaming straight up the middle. Usually, in this edition, I've seen a lot of everyone is afraid of getting their head chopped off with a killing blow. Whether you're a lord on a dragon or a wizard or any large monster. There's multiple items. There's vows for the Bretonnians. There's creatures for the Tomb Kings that can just lop your head off. And I've had my Nurgle spawn die that way. Just lost all its wounds.
Yeah.
You can't killing blow a chariot. So I usually aim him at whatever has killing blow, and he shoots up the middle. He's got a 3-up armor save, which usually gets moved up to 5-up armor on a -2, right? But he's got a 5-up armor save, 5-up ward save built into Chaos, and then I gave him the Carrion Crown, which gives him 5-up regen and poison. So he's basically a 5-up, 5-up, 5-up. You re-roll 6s.
Really
the Forsaken are stubborn on the first turn of combat. So even if I just need you not to wipe them out. If you don't wipe them out, they fall back in good order, and you will always see when I set up that my Dragon Ogres are on the flanks for that infilating flank charge on both ends.
Yeah.
Once the BSB and the Forsaken have held somebody up in the middle. And I think maybe 5 out of the 6 games, that's exactly how that played out. I just sent the Forsaken and the Chariot BSB straight up the middle. They stopped whatever was coming at them. If they didn't just die outright, like against another dragon, like a star dragon. But we had to modify the plan on that one. But
Okay, so real quick, what was like the most eventful or funny thing that happened for you, at least in these 6 games? Because I know you had a blast in doubles, but like
oh my
of the
god,
six games, what was like?
my favorite story is from doubles.
Go ahead and
And
say that one. That's fine.
oh,
No, go
so
for it. It's fine.
no, I'll say it. So on the
I
second
know this one.
scenario,
You
all
do?
woods
Okay.
are treated as dangerous or as dangerous terrain.
Okay.
So I had a Nurgle spawn with 1 wound left, and I was lining them up for a flank charge on these Empire handgunners, and there was
Mm.
5 of them. But if I run into them, I can run into the block and just straight down the line. So my opponent decides I'm going to turn to the right and shoot this spawn and kill it. He turns 5 guys to the right and rolls 4 1s.
Ooh.
So 4 of the 5 handgunners die. My Nurgle spawn charges the lone handgunner that gets the point, rolls a 1, he dies. Like those
No.
woods claimed more lives than anybody in that entire round.
What was the name of the woods back in I guess it was in 8th edition where like if it was like something a thicket? Was that it? Like if you run through
Yeah.
it, like you'd lose
Yeah.
extra wounds or something?
And I
Ugh,
think
so good.
this for me ties into what Andy was saying early on in the beginning. When you talk about and reminisce about your old world games, we're always talking about the cool things that happen. I have played competitive 40K. When you talk about competitive 40K, you talk about the mistakes that were made, how things messed up,
Yeah.
how the dice didn't go your way. And it's a totally different vibe. Fantasy is all about old world is all about the stories that come out of your game, and that's why I'm a square baser for life,
That's right.
because whether you win or lose, something cool is going to happen in your game.
I think the coolest moment for me was when I think it was round 3. I played against another Bretonnian player, and he had a Green Knight, and we had a Green Knight on Green Knight duel, and it was just like you kind of whiff a little bit. It's like you do a wound. Which one's the real Green Knight? Who comes out victorious? And the real Giles. Like it was just moments like that. I completely agree. It's like it's just that is what makes this game great. It's more about just like who then won, but it's the stories you can reminisce on later, like a week later. You still remember that like top of the mind kind of thing.
You haven't seen epic combat until you've seen 3 rat swarms fight 2 Tomb King swarms for 4 rounds. Now there is some epic
That's awesome. Nature on nature. Okay.
Blue, you've been very modest, and
Yeah.
not about the fact that you went 6-0, first place, best general. I'm sure the
Thank you,
viewers would
thank
love to learn a little bit more about what you ran and what your experience was, right?
Okay. Before I get into that, thank you. I will. There are some questions from the chat. Ninja Kiwi,
cool.
who is also Chuck, he has some questions. Questions for the TOs from someone potentially interested in attending next year. How will you improve on making rulings that are clear in the rulebooks, i.e., making a ruling that hexes and enhancements stack, even though the rulebook clearly states they don't? I didn't know y'all even made that ruling, but okay. Also, do you feel that the winner of the tournament used an army? Wow. Okay, entirely on wrong basis. Continue. Please answer those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that, actually talking to Blue early on in this experience, I realized that we were going to need an unofficial FAQ. Something to help the players understand where we were kind of looking at certain edge cases in the rules. And we are not Games Workshop. I don't want to be Games Workshop. I don't want to like delve into their realm. And I do feel like they have a lot more to offer the game with FAQs. And so what we did is we put a team together, and our team worked with the Square Base team, and we created our own FAQ based starting on what Val and his team did to make sure that we kind of all became part of the same space.
That's SBot,
So
right?
that's SBot, yeah. So the SBot Toronto. So this is the Square Base guys, Rob and Val. Val was part of the FLG for a long time, so he has friends that we all have mutual friends. So I wanted to make sure that like because I didn't just want to take something that was already out there. So we spent like probably, I don't know, like 7 days on this, trying to get everything nailed down. How would we roll this? How would we roll that? So we found it really exhausting and frustrating. And we also wanted to be on the same page as Val. So Val had his things that his hills to die on. We had our hills to die on. I ultimately wanted to just make judgment calls so that everybody knew what the rules were, and whether they liked them or not, that's what we had, and we could just start from there and go from there. And then the other thing were the edge cases during the tournament that we had to make judgment calls on. But I come from also sports, so I feel like, referees and go out there and they have to make judgment calls, and the players just have to live with it.
Yep.
So the that's we did our best to make the judgment calls that we could see at the time, but at that point, you're under pressure, you don't have much time. So what we did was we did a list of all the things that we made judgment calls on, all the things that we were kind of are still outliers. We have that list, and we're going to have an event soon, and before that event, we're going to go over that list with Val. Val and his SBot team are currently going over their own unofficial FAQ that they're using from what we did for SBot 3. And so, and then we're also kind of taking into account this new GW FAQ 1.3, which has a lot of problems.
Is that list you're talking about? Is that on the website that you were going to plug?
So that's all internal.
Okay.
Yeah, we're basically going to go over all those things that we thought we made rulings on, that we were like pressured to make rulings on at that point, and that's kind of what we do, right? As a judge, you have to just make a ruling. So we're going to go over all those to make sure that we come to a decision and a conclusion about these as best we possibly can, and then we're going to also run them by the SquareBot team. Love to have your opinions on it, Blue, as well.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I can't. My goal is to not only grow the community, but everybody to play. Even if we're playing different scenarios, even if we're playing different events, even if we're playing narrative, if we're playing, I just want all of us to kind of be playing the same game, at least 80% of it, the same game. So some things we call, and not everybody's going to like everything we do. And we're just going to live with that, and they're going to have to live with it too.
And I think that's the way to do it, because no matter what you do, the internet and people on there are going to complain and whine. And even if they weren't at the event and don't actually know what went on during the games, they're still going to complain and whine as if something happened when it didn't happen, as he mentioned when he was talking about the bases. So
can I take a crack at that?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Listen, if you've been playing fantasy for a long time, base sizes change. But maybe you made your models back when you had the old bases, and you did a great diorama and a display. You can either upgrade your bases, you can make movement trays to account for the difference in the base size, or you can make adapters. As long as your uniform and your opponents know there was nobody at the tournament, you'd be hard pressed to find anybody that said they missed a charge by a millimeter because someone's movement tray was too big or too small, or they didn't make contact. I take my movement trays off once I have a couple of guys die. Some people, they just line up their guys rank and file. It's not that serious. Blue is who they're talking about. He had adapters for all his knights. You can literally see them. Sure. I think the issue is a picture that got still framed. So you're trying to draw conclusions from one picture without seeing the entire event. If you had talked to his opponent, you would have known that he had no gripes with any way that game went. He made all the charges he was gonna make. Blue made his charges. The fact that people are a little butthurt about some adapters not being glued onto some bases. Well, if you haven't seen Blue's display board, it's a beautiful giant castle upon which all his knights fit in perfectly. So, I wouldn't have changed all my bases to suit a one-off tournament when your list constantly changes. We're all about to change our list now due to the FAQ that just came out as well. Mm-hmm. So there was no smoke and there's no fire here. I don't know why anyone's trying to start something.
And
It's the internet. It's
This
the
was the
internet.
first event for Old World, and we're not
Whoa, whoa,
going
whoa.
down the route of 40K. I know some people are a little
That's fine.
salty, and that's what they're used to after big events.
Yep.
That's not what we're doing. That's not what this community is about.
No.
yeah, if
Thank
I
you.
could jump in just really quickly as well, I wanted
Please.
to add that I think like one of the great things about this game is that you can do movement by intent, right? And that's what I saw everybody at the tournament doing, saying things like, I'm moving to be exactly inside charge range or outside charge range,
Hmm.
or so they can see this or can't see this. People were very clear, people were very precise. And I think that that helps so much with this, but also just the community and the vibe of the tournament. Like as you went through, there weren't those situations where people were like, oh, like, I was a millimeter off or you're on the wrong base size, that's the problem. None of that came up. None of that was a problem. It's not a real thing. And from a rulings point of view, Andy talked a lot about that. I think, unfortunately, like the core rules of the game have some ambiguities, right? There are some complexities that are difficult, and the FAQs have unfortunately sometimes made things more complicated, less complicated. I think the unofficial FAQ that Andy and I was able to help a little bit with that as well, really did try to just create some more clarity so that everybody had the same
Yeah. Just
expectations.
mitigate
But
some confusion.
it's not about what's right, what's wrong, because it's really hard to figure out what's right and what's wrong for a lot of these things. You just have to make a call and then make sure everyone knows what that call is. Going into the event, there's always going to be stuff that comes up where people are like, well, my group plays it this way, your group plays it this way. It's not in the FAQ. What do you do?
Hmm.
And that's where calls need to be made, right? And I don't think, from my experience, I didn't see anything that was crazy or egregious or whatever. Sometimes there were things that people weren't as happy about, but that's an event, right? You can't have an event without stuff like that happening. It's just very difficult,
Right.
and it's going to get better and better as hopefully GW improves the rule set,
Hmm.
as TOs get more and more experience and more of these, like the list of items from this gets incorporated. That list will get smaller and smaller.
Yeah, I think it's confusing sometimes when each section of the country has its own FAQ on top of the GW FAQ. So you really have to be aware what rulings they have compared to the other ones because it could be totally different. You could go in with a list and your list doesn't work that way, or you're playing and you're expecting this rule to work in your favor, but then maybe you didn't read it or you just forgot about it that it doesn't work this way. So you could potentially lose a game for that, and it's rough, but there is, I think, some kind of camaraderie, at least maybe just on the Western Hemisphere with like SBOT and like our areas, even though we got a big triangle SBOT and then California and like the Mid Atlantic, trying to come together to have some kind of conglomerate of rules so we can all try and use the same one. There is a Discord called the Unofficial FAQ. Andy, I don't know if you're in that. Are you in that
Yeah.
one?
Mhm.
Okay, cool. So that's where it seems like most people are trying to make something so everyone can vote as like, I don't know if only TOs have a vote, but trying to make it so everyone can play on the same page so we don't have to constantly, like I just said, go to an event expecting a rule to work this way and not work another way. And I think that's the best thing to do. If we can all try and work under the same rule set, it would be best. So, but that's just me. Any other
Yeah,
questions?
and much easier for people to
Oh
kind
yeah.
of go from event to event, which is what one of our goals is.
So Ernan was talking about there was a still picture where my adapters were on the side of the page, and I'll address it. Like some people are like, don't address it, let it go away. I don't give a rat's butt because I know I was not at fault here. So I have some adapters on the side. My Pegasus Knights are still on the 40 mil bases, and I made a bunch of little 20 by 40 millimeter bases. So when it actually mattered, which it never actually mattered the entire event, I would put those there to show where my models were and where you need to charge to, right? And the intent, like Myles said, it's all about intent. So if you're like, hey, I'm this far away, you're this far away, that's all that matters. So there was one moment where someone thought it came into like mattering, but it was after the game was over. But then I reminded the player that you were measuring to my BSB, and he is on a different base. So he thought he was measuring my Pegasus Knight. When I reminded him, he was like, "Oh crap, you're right. I was measuring to that guy." So it became a wash, and it didn't matter whatsoever. So, but that was like the one thing, and I guess it got shared around on a Discord or something like that, and people backroom talking. So people tried to blow it up, but it's like, I mean, you could blow it up, but I know I wasn't at fault. The guy that I played with said it was fine. Every player I played with said it was fine. So it's like people making mountains out of molehills, and they weren't even at the event. It's like one of those
Yeah.
things. Um,
And another thing about that is that I have like over 500 models that I've painted on resin bases.
hmm,
Um, expensive resin bases from like micro art studios in Poland, and so I'm not about to yank my models
yep,
from my resin bases. So adapters are going to be used, and that's just how, that's how I'm going to play this game.
I completely agree.
Um, so other people who have spent, you know, their past lives building armies on 20 millimeter bases that are now asked to be on 25 millimeter bases. I don't care about however they do it, right? Like if they want to use adapters, if they want to use movement trays adapters, I have all of Matt's uh like from Mini Wargaming. I have all of his STLs. So I've, been able to print out anybody who wanted to play the game, bases and converters and movement
okay.
tray converters and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's just a part of it. That's just a part of this
Yeah.
game now.
Yeah, so one of the things I was doing, so I have a bunch of 20 mils, obviously, and I have some adapter movement trays where they just fit right in the slots. But at LVO specifically, I have a movement tray, so all my cavalry are on 25 by 50 still. So I just have a movement tray that I can fit 5 wide at the top, and it's as if they were 30 millimeters wide. So it's like, what's the big deal? It's 5 wide. Yeah, there's some space in between, so there's not like an adapter. It's not like they fit perfectly, but it fits. So as long as you know that I'm 5 wide up here, is that really a big deal? I don't think so, and no one really said anything when I went from lance formation to uh, closed order, not in lance formation with 5 wide up front. So if people are whining about something, I think they're just reaching. I understand trying to clarify stuff. There's nothing wrong with trying to clarify, but when you come at it like a antagonistic kind of thing, well, then maybe you should relax and figure out what you're trying to talk about before you start accusing people of doing things. But so what? Any questions for you guys? It seems like a lot of people are talking about adapters. They said great approach in terms of like trying to make it community driven. I have a collection of highlights from 5th Ed, and I really appreciate you supporting base adapters in the tournament and hope to see you next year. Some people said they love Val, which is true. So there's a ton of tournaments coming up. Do y'all have any ones local that are any GTs or RTTs that are coming up?
We're working with a group in San Francisco right now to have a monthly RTT.
Nice.
They are kind of they do a lot of the Magic the Gathering, um, like tournaments at this location. So they can house about 200 people for 200 players for Magic the Gathering. So we're thinking that we could probably go up to 48 pretty easily.
Wow.
But I think what we're doing right now is we're really, so we've created this group name called Monster Slayer Productions, and so as we move forward,
Let me get it up. Hold on. Where are you at? No, keep going, please.
So I think Myles
Monster Slayer.
created the website yesterday, so that's how new this thing is.
Dun, dun, dun.
But as we continue onward, we're going to be, creating a logo so you know that this is who's running the events. We'd love to like team with SquareHammer, team with the Old World Legends from Orange County, California. We'd love to team with Val with the Square Base teams. So it just if we continue on with FLG, which I'd love to do as well. If any tournament that we do, you're going to see our logo on it, so that we know that you know what to expect from us.
And just so y'all know, the website is just monsterslayerproductions.com. If you're in that area, or even if you're not, if you want to travel that area and play an event, there you go.
Yeah, and we have high hopes for the website as well to put pictures of top painted armies and overall winners, things like that, to have it kind of more interactive with the player experience, so that like you can go back at old tournaments and see some of your highlights from the event and remember who won or who got best overall or who came in 10th. You know what I mean? So right. So these are things that like those experiences that will stay with you for the rest of your life are easy to remember when you have pictures of them on a site that you can see. So things like that.
And that's the next one you have is May 24th and 25th. Bay
May
Area
20th,
Open?
so that's a Bay Area Open. Yeah, so that's an FLG event. We are
Oh, okay.
hoping that we have it. So we're hoping to work with FLG on the Bay Area Open again, hoping to make it like a 36 to 48 player tournament. I have an invitational going out, which is going to be in our area. We only have about 32 slots for that, so I made it an invitational. But
Okay.
it's kind of like we're taking our best terrain and best tables, and we're going to do something like
Cool.
in a location that's about 5 minutes away from my house. So
Okay.
yeah, so we
Uh,
have plans.
let's see. So, do we want to talk about my list? I guess we could talk about mine.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Bretonia.
I also wanted to give out a shout out to Kevin Holland and in
Oh
addition
yeah.
Dylan Mosley, who are also on my TO team, who also worked with Myles and I to like get everything done. Jake Mathis, who drove all the train and prizes over,
Whew.
and all our sponsors, and we've put all our sponsors onto the website as well.
Okay, so here's my list. You can see I tried to make it like as fluffy as possible, adding names and stuff for each person. And I'll post pictures of my display board and a whole bunch of other pictures from the event, so all the boards and everything like that. So I have Valiant Guardian, Alistar Devien. That's how I pronounce it. Might be wrong. But so here's my Baron. He is not a general. He is the Exiles Vow, of course. I'm running Exiles. So I have 2 lucky heirlooms. He's on a Royal Pegasus and the Iron Spike Shield with the Virtue of Heroism. And we will get into the Iron Spike Shield and the heirlooms. And yes. Next is my General Baron. He has the classic Frontier Axe, the busted thing. It's 30 points and it's better than the Ogre Blade. Makes no sense. With the Virtue of Knightly Temper, so that gives you Hatred and D3 extra attacks. We have a Paladin BSB with the Banner of Honorable Warfare. Oh, I was told someone ruled at the event that a Dragon's Breath weapon is not a missile weapon. So I don't know if that's true. It's just what someone asked in like a different chat, not on the YouTube chat. But I took this banner specifically for this unit with the Pegasus and stuff to charge a dragon, because in the GW FAQ it says basically is a Dragon's Breath weapon a missile weapon, and it says basically yes. So I took this guy to try and fight dragons. I only fought one. It's crazy. Ernan, you took all the dragons for me. I only fought one dragon the entire event, and I was like, I literally built this list to try and kill a dragon, and I didn't fight a single dragon, which was rough. Um,
And it
so
seemed like we were going to make it even worse for you.
yes, I know. It's like what the. He had the falcon horn because one, I think that should be one use only, or it should go up in points. At least be 50 points so the guy can't take anything else, but that's just me. Or it should also affect your own stuff. It shouldn't only be. It's just too good for 40 points because you can just shut down an enemy unit, like a whole enemy army. We have the original Green Knight right here. My core is just minimum. It's just 11 core knights. I felt dirty running this whole army, just so y'all know. I did not want to do this. Blame Andy. I was going to bring Tomb Kings. He said, bring my best painted stuff. And I was like, well, that's definitely my Bretonnians. So we have 11 knights, not full command, mission and musician, with Gauntlet of the Duel and a war banner just for extra combat res. Another unit of 5 knights, also no banner, but with just a champion for Gauntlet of the Duel. Basically just challenge you out and try and live because they're stubborn. We have 11 bowmen with musician, 5 Pegasus with the banner of the Zealous Knight. I still argue, and I guess GW clarified it enough to say that characters joining that unit get Vanguard, which I also don't like, but that's just me. Seems too powerful. And 2 old cool Bombards, because don't Bretonnians need cannons that are better than Empire cannons? Isn't that ridiculous? It's like they're 25 points cheaper and their misfires, their chart is just so much better than the Empires. It makes no sense. But, okay, so I want to get to this is the important thing to me, is this fella right here with the heirlooms and the Iron Spike Shield. So I am under the impression, based on the rules that I have, or I've read in my interpretation, and I have like a little document that like tries to explain how it actually works. This guy with the Iron Spike Shield, when an enemy attacks you and rolls a 1 to hit or a 1 to wound, that attacker immediately suffers a Strength 3 hit, right? So basically a hit, which you would assume it means it's automatically hit because you got hit. And the lucky heirlooms are to reroll 1 hit 1 wound, 1 armor save, 1 ward save, once per round. And since you have 2 of them, you can do that twice per round. So if you charge, you got 4 attacks. Maybe you get rerolls if it's a dragon because it has a breath weapon. And you use those 2 rerolls to try and roll a 6 to wound and kill a dragon or what have you. So this is what I made to try and describe
A
this.
20-point item giving you a monster killing blow and
That's right.
and heroic killing blow, right?
That's right. That's right.
It's nothing
And you
but
have to make a
non-monster.
and you have to make a diagram for it.
I had to because actually it is 20 points because I knew everyone was going to argue it. So I was like, okay,
So,
let's
yeah.
try and prove this thing and let's see if it works. Okay, so let's see if y'all can see it well on here.
If we can follow your logic.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
So I know some people can't. Okay, so after game 1, down here, Myles down here came up with a couple of goons, and they were like, just kidding, obviously, just messing around. Came up with a couple of goons who were like, no, it doesn't work. No shield for you. And I was like, what? No, let me try. And I will preface this by saying, not one time did I roll a killing blow or monster slayer the entire event.
So you're
Not
the
even
reason.
with my shield, which I couldn't use, but not even with a lance. I didn't roll a 6 once, even with rerolls. So
Oh man.
what the hell? But that's funny, I guess. That is probably the most memorable thing. I paid 290 some points for this guy, and he just didn't do his job. Okay, so Virtue Heroism. This model has Killing Blow and Monster Slayer with non-magical weapons. Okay, and Virtue Heroism, it says, unless using a magic weapon, which a shield is not a magic weapon, it's armor. A model with this virtue gains Killing Blow and Monster Slayer special rules. So it's basically just in his special, under his special rules. Killing Blow says if a model with this special rule rolls a natural 6 when making a wound roll from an attack made in combat. So remember this, attack made in combat. Same thing with Monster Slayer, an attack made in combat. The Iron Spike Shield, when you roll a 1 to hit or wound against the wielder, you get hit by an immediate hit from the wielder of the shield. It says.
So does that shield become a magical weapon?
It's not a weapon. It's armor.
It's making a hit.
But it's armor. But it's armor.
It's magical and it's a weapon.
But does it count as a? It's not a weapon. That's what's interesting. It's armor.
Armor doesn't hurt people.
Well, I'll take my so I brought 2 metal gauntlets to the event because I have like gauntlets of the duel. So
those will hurt people.
I would, yeah, exactly. If I would, I would like challenge thee.
I think this is one of those things that we're actually going to discuss, and we're going to talk to Val, and we're going to see if we can.
Cool either way, right?
And maybe we side with you, but we just make it a 100-point magic item.
Woo! Not worth it. I would take 3 heirlooms over this any day. Okay,
Bring back the Rune of Spite.
Okay. So the Iron Spike Shield says whenever an opponent rolls a natural 1 to hit or wound, they immediately suffer a Strength 3 hit. So remember, Killing Blow is attacks made in combat, so attacks, and Iron Spike Shield says you take a hit. Okay.
Right.
Lucky Heirloom, we can skip this part because this is just get you the rerolls, blah, blah, blah. So automatic hits, and this is where I'm just going to call them the Goon Squad. It's obviously just a joke. The Goon Squad says this is where they disagree because these first 3 words right here. Some attacks hit automatically, simply causing a number of hits with no roll to hit required. In such cases, it is exactly as it sounds. Do not make a roll to hit. The attack hits automatically. So my purview, if that's the right word there, the right verbiage, my purview is that the shield is an automatic hit because it hits automatically. And then where it says automatic hits are counted as attacks because it says the attack.
Is that in the shooting phase, though? Is that in the shooting phase that the automatic hits count as attacks? Is that where you're reading it from?
This is on page 143. Let me pull up the book. Core rulebook, page 143. I don't remember where I grabbed that screenshot, but we will find it. I think it's actually pretty generic, but
yeah, we are definitely going to go over it.
It's interesting.
I mean, it's definitely a point of contention here. We've made a list, and we kind of all want to go over things before our next GT.
That's true.
That's
that actually is an oddball stuff shooting.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. So good catch. Is automatic hits listed anywhere else?
So these are my concerns. So we'll go over it. We'll come up with a conclusion. We'll ask Val's
But let me keep
for
going.
Val's interpretation.
Let me
But yeah,
keep
keep
going.
going, keep
Yes,
going.
I'm scheming. Yes, yes. It's always fun to scheme lists and try and find stuff. So,
Yeah.
okay. So it says some hits attack automatically. So and it says the attack hits automatically. And if you look under Monster Slayer and Killing Blow, it says attack made in combat. And since I'm using a shield and you're attacking me in combat, I'm then hitting you with an automatic hit in combat. This is where my logic comes into play as to why it is considered a Killing Blow monster attack. So if you look under Assailment, it says assailments are deadly attacks. So that's why some like options, if you have the special rule Killing Blow, you could do an assailment, and I believe that it gains the Killing Blow Monster Slayer thing, because I think there's a high elf character that gets the like one of the honors, or I think elven honors, I think it's what it's called. They gain the special rule Killing Blow, so then their assailments should get
We
Killing Blow
rolled against
too.
that too. We rolled against that too.
You did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Also, the magic missile gaining. What was it, Miles? The magic missile gaining +1 strength or something like that. There were a couple of
What was
things that
that?
we ruled against. That
That's
that's
weird.
a high elf thing.
Oh, okay.
So they're kind of all in the same line, and yeah, and I think they kind of will have to make it a decision
Oh yeah,
one
for
way or
sure.
the other, and it'll affect them all.
So this was so stomp attacks are automatic hits, aren't they? Aren't stomp attacks automatic hits? So this is where I was
Yes,
kind of justifying the where like up above where it says automatic hits, because they are attacks made in combat that hit automatically. So it says they hit automatically. So I was thinking, well, if Killing Blow, like on the corn spawn, of automatic hits of their impact hits and stomp attacks get Killing Blow Monster Slayer, why wouldn't this? Now, I can see an argument either way. Don't get me wrong.
right, right.
Obviously, I was hoping the other way, but it's like, well, it didn't go my way. And what I probably should have done the smart way would have been to, if you, okay, oops. If anyone has any question, if you think a rule works this way or that way, message your TO before you get to the event so you don't just show up and you're just like, what? I was expecting this to work this way. My list is screwed, blah, blah, blah. Not that I felt that way, because they were gracious enough to let me change my list. And I think they did that for a couple other people to allow them to like change the list, but not like crazy, just enough so it fits. But then you get a yellow card. And someone said a yellow card is -10 to your overall points. I don't remember that,
No,
but I
no,
believe
no,
it. No? Okay. So someone
no.
was saying that, but I mean, it's whatever. Um, and then you mentioned to me, if you get a yellow card, if you two people tie, the person who didn't get the yellow card should get the prize, which I completely agree with. Um, so I could see this either way as it working or not working. Um, and obviously I'm down to discuss with whoever. I would love to hear your side, Miles. It seems,
Yeah, well,
please let
maybe
me know.
just to jump in. I mean, so we played our game and we didn't come up, right? We didn't have the dragon versus Peg Knight fight. And honestly, like when I heard it, I was like, wow, we missed something. This is amazing. Like, I mean, just kudos to you, Blue, for thinking outside the box and
It wasn't
finding
just
something.
me. It was a group effort. It was a group effort,
I
but thank
mean,
you.
it's impressive. I think it's something that a lot of people looked past and didn't see. And so over lunch break, I brought it up to my friends. I was like, "Whoa, this is so cool. This is interesting." And that was our goon squad, I guess.
Goon
Coming back to
Squad.
you saying like, we had lunch and we chatted about it, and we're like, "Does this actually work? How do we feel about it?" So I think there were two main concerns. My personal opinion is that, like many things in the rules, unfortunately, it's ambiguous. It's not entirely clear if it should or shouldn't work. If we're, and we're just talking about rules as written, rules as intended, I think is very much tea leaves because it's very hard to figure out what GW actually intends for this sort of stuff.
Sure.
But if we're just talking about rules as written very strictly, etc., I think there's like two potential concerns.
Okay.
One of those concerns is the shield making attacks? Or are the automatic hits that it deals attacks? And I think if you look at stomp attacks or you look at impact hits, they say these are automatic hits, they count as attacks. Some other types of automatic hits, like the shield, don't explicitly say these are attacks. Um, Now you brought up that in oddball shooting, it says all attacks that are made that are that do automatic hits like count as attacks, etc. It sort of has that section about it.
Hmm.
And I think the concern is that that line doesn't really like I'm not sure it applies to this because it's saying, it starts with all attacks that are automatic hits. Therefore, it's already qualified itself to attacks. And it's not clear to me whether these hits are attacks. But so that's one question is what's an attack?
Okay.
GW hasn't clarified it very clearly, etc. And then the other one is the magic one where we know that Killing Blow does work with things like stomp attacks, as like in the giant spawn of corn.
Hmm.
Um, but we also know it doesn't work with magic weapons. And now the magic shield is not a weapon, it's magic armor. But if it's doing attacks, is that sort of equivalent to it being a weapon?
Right.
I'm not sure. I think that one is weaker. I think you could argue, well, oh, it's magic, so it shouldn't. So in the end, my personal opinion is it's pretty vague, honestly. And I think it probably, in an ideal world, just has a TO ruling before an event,
I agree.
and then it's really clear.
Hmm.
Um, that's my 2 cents.
Cool.
I would if I were the person making the call, I think I would land
Shy towards
on
no.
probably shy towards no, but
Fair.
I totally see the argument. Like, it doesn't exactly say what an attack is. Their hits being done in combat, are those not attacks? Like, yeah, I totally see it.
So there's two things that I think someone mentioned one of them. They said that nowadays stomp attacks have armor bane, and that was actually agreed upon by the new GW FAQ, and y'all also ruled it that way. But rules is written beforehand, it says weapons, and stomps aren't weapons. So we have always been playing it that if you have a stomp, you don't get the armor bane because it specifically says weapons when it talks about stomp attacks. So like, is your
That might have come from Val. Did that
yes,
come from Val? Yeah, that might have
yeah,
come
I
from
think
Val.
I
Yeah.
think SBot says they are allowed, but then the new GW FAQ agreed or not agreed, but just said yes, you get armor bane on that. So we like our area had always been playing that they don't get it because stomp attacks it says weapons. The other one was, and I think Luna brought it up. Someone brought it up on one of the discords talking about how. Do you remember previously for Bretonia, if you or any mount really, if you had a special rule it applied to your mount, so some people were, I don't know how long it lasted or etc., but they were, if you gave virtue or heroism to your Baron or Duke on whatever your mount is, it also gained Killing Blow
Killing
in
Blow.
Monster Slayer,
Yep.
which is insane. But they clarified that, very quickly, or quick enough. So they're definitely doing things on the fly here. We are basically the beta testers,
Yeah.
and it's basically what it is. And
And they're using FAQ to errata. I mean, come on.
yes,
They're
yes.
using FAQ to balance. They're using FAQ to errata.
Get out of here.
So yeah, so it makes it difficult for us to kind of see any continuity within the rule set and continuity within the FAQ. And and some things that they could errata to make things more balanced, they didn't, like stupidity, right?
Yeah.
Stupidity, we figured out what we thought we figured out what stupidity was,
Uh,
right? Which is a backbone
yeah.
of many armies, like including the troll horde,
Hmm.
and I think stupidity is stupid, right? Like I'm so used to it being you half move, half of your
You can't
move, you move
cast
straight
magic.
forward, half move, yep,
Yep.
half move
Yeah,
up,
why can't you cast now? You're like drooling and and you're like, oh,
but you
let
can
me
cast.
harness the freaking vortex. What? That doesn't make
Yeah.
sense.
And so with trolls, it's like you have a troll horde, which is a beautiful army, one of my favorite armies. Like
Hmm.
you have the troll hag, which Trish modeled in such a incredible way, right? So it's like
Yes.
you have this beautiful army, potentially. So, but what happens is it gets closer and closer to you and wants to charge. It has less and less of a chance to because everything's stupid and they can't charge.
Right.
But back in the day when it was half move up, and if you hit your opponent, you charge, you count as charging. If we played it that way, then that troll horde would see a lot more play.
Yes.
Um, yeah. But again, I've used Cold One Nights for so many years that I'm also
Now,
biased.
is this the edition where they have the item where you ignore stupidity?
Yes.
That's this one. Okay.
You have an item
It's a
where
banner,
you
right?
can a banner where you can make sure you can roll cold blooded for one stupidity test.
That's all it is. You get once. Okay. I feel like that's auto include if you
They're
run
they're
dual
legacy
armies.
armies, and the other thing
Yes,
I
they
think the
are.
short-sighted problem with the legacy armies is that people are complaining that we see certain armies at the top tables, and hello Games Workshop. That's because the armies that used to be the scissors to their paper are legacy armies, and they're so bad now that nobody plays them except for maybe Dark Elves and Vampire Counts.
Right.
Right. So if we saw Skaven, if Skaven was good, and we saw Skaven at top tables, Bretonia wouldn't be as out at many top tables, and that's just how it used to be back in the day. And so the balancing act
Because they
that we
ignored armor
had,
a lot, I think. I think they used to
and
just
and
ignore
also they
armor.
dropped your Peg Knights.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
yes.
so
Yeah.
Shout out
so
to the one Chaos Dwarf player.
right, yeah,
That's right.
that's awesome. And so that's the other thing that like I really wish that we saw some changes to that whole idea of the legacy armies, and to bring them back to the game that we've been playing for 40 years.
Well, I'm glad.
Ah,
I'm glad that you all allowed Legacy. Uh, if you all did not allow Legacy, I think obviously the participation would have been a lot lower. I probably would not have come just because that means was there seven? Are there seven armies that are not Legacy? Is it 7 or 8? Something
yeah,
like that.
there's 9 armies that they're trying to turn into 27. Right, like with Arcane
Sure.
Journals, they're trying to make
Yes.
3 armies out of each one army, so it's 9 armies that they're trying to turn into 27.
But you basically,
Ah.
if I would like, I'd have to play the same army several times. I know Ernan, you had to play the same army several times. I think I had to play Brett's twice, but I think I only played Brett's twice. Everyone else was something different. So that actually I played Beastman twice too. Never mind.
Yeah, we're also thinking about like ideas to comp armies that or lists that might not be as good, to give them a chance of kind of like competing.
Are you saying giving Skaven and other things like 200 more points to play with?
Yeah, why not?
Ooh,
Wouldn't that be
ooh.
fun?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I'm agreeing with Todd, and Todd's a big TO that runs stuff out here, that it's okay for other events to have different rules. So you're not playing the same event every freaking time. It's okay to have different missions. It's okay to have a different comp. It's okay to have different, like, I guess just parameters to play in. So then you can switch up your list and it's something fun, because then you're like, ooh, I can figure out how to scheme for this list, and then for this army I have this one. It's fun to do, to not have to play the same army every single time. Even I forgot his name. What's the guy from Games Workshop from the White Dwarf? That's the article is basically you should play the same list every single time.
Stillman,
You should never
Nigel Stillman.
Yes, thank you. Like you should never
Mhm.
change your list. You always play the same thing. I'm not a huge fan of that. If you have a big collection, I want to be able to use
That's
all my
not how we
toys.
collect models. You know, I would love to dust off my 4 wound chimera and give him a fighting chance somewhere where 10 peasant bowmen don't shoot it out of the sky.
Right.
But
Same.
Not yet. Not yet.
hey, I will say this, Blue. Respect to those peasant bowmen. My last opponent with his Bretonnians, he lined up 30 peasant bowmen and all his knights behind him, and I've never seen all the bowmen to the
They
front.
were hiding behind the peasants? What is this?
I thought it was some kind of Bretonnian trick. I'm like, oh, those Pegasus Knights probably can charge over the peasant bowman. He had his Pegasus Knights on these tall poles.
Okay.
So they look great. So I'm like, and then he's like, no, I can't charge you. And I'm like, how are those peasant bowmen blocking those beautiful Pegasus Knights from charging into my line? I don't understand, but they do.
I played Matt. Matt and I played round 5, and that was a brutal game. That's where that infamous picture came from. That was a great tight game. That was wonky and very, very close. Bretonnians versus Bretonnians just seems like if you have exiles, you just you have such an advantage because you don't pray. If they're Bretonnians, they're not allowed to pray. So I get stubborn and veteran, and they don't get anything. So like that seems weird. That seems like a huge advantage and a huge incentive to play exiles because there's already so many Bretonnian players. But some people were saying my list is unbeatable, and I'm like, not even freaking close. I almost lost 2 of my games by literally a 50-50 dice roll, especially my last round versus Eric versus High Elves. And I was extremely lucky. I ran into one gun line, which was basically Eric's High Elf list. But if I had to play against a Tomb King I was shocked. I brought this list because I wanted to murder like Warriors of Chaos and stuff like that had big monsters, and then I wanted to get mollywopped by Tomb Kings with caskets and like 50 archers and Ushapti that just every single one kills one Peg Knight, or Empire Gunline. Okay, so one of the Empire list was triple cannon, double Hellblaster, and 2 War Wagons, and I was
And
like, okay.
mortars.
And yeah, and and 2 units of Outriders, I was like, okay, if I fight that list, I automatically lose. That's okay, but like that's the rock paper scissors aspect. I will rush forward, maybe get 1 or 2 turns of his shooting to just wipe out my Pegasus, and that's just what happens. But I just got lucky, and I didn't have to fight that. So sometimes when it comes to pairings, that's just what happens. Oh, do you want to discuss that, Andy? Do you want to discuss how y'all did pairings? Some people on other chats were like, this shouldn't work this way, it shouldn't work this way. I personally think the way I run events, and I'm cool with whatever someone wants to do, it's just the way I do it. Hope this, everyone watching, if you ever run an event, make sure you know, or if you're going to run one, decide how you want to run it. I do it by wins first, and then battle points second. You could do it by, I think Andy and the TOs at LVO did it by wins, and then anyone that won could play against each other, and that's fine too. It's just like
Yeah, we had Path to Victory, right?
Path to
So what that does is that it weights your early losses more than later losses. So
Okay.
somebody who wants to purposely lose that first game and then play into not lesser opponents, maybe
No,
players
we
that are
understand. We
struggling,
understand.
or
People
you know what I
like
mean?
people like Ernan over here. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So people that lost their first game, right?
Sure.
So and then win 5 games straight,
Okay.
right? That helps to not allow
mitigate.
that. Yeah, to mitigate that.
Okay.
And so in 40K it was a big problem.
Still
And I
is.
even
Still
I
is.
even played into players. I won't mention them. TJ Lanigan. I won't mention them, but I played into players that actually, specifically tried to do that.
Oh,
Right.
that's
So,
rough.
you know what I mean? Like,
I know TJ. That's
and I
funny.
wouldn't call it cheating, but it's cheating, right? So, wait, did I call it cheating? In any case,
He's the best dressed man in all of 40K.
hey,
Oh my God.
if you like
Oh.
belt buckles and pink ties, they're fantastic.
Oh my God.
But
I love TJ.
no, he's great. He was a great player, but he was. This was definitely some of the things that we found in 40K, and so I just didn't want to bring that along with us, and so that was
Yes.
that was a big thing that like Val and I talked about.
Okay.
And so that was one of the bigger things, especially when we were going to get into like the 96, 128, when we were going to get into the like really really high level players for the old world. I didn't want to start off with allowing anybody to
So let me ask:
if you
submarine, you might have? I guess you still have a chance to win overall, but there's. I think
Yes.
40K was more specific on best general. So if you
Yeah.
lost your first game, isn't there no chance to win best general? But I guess you could still play second or third or something like that. But
Yeah. It depends. It depends
Okay.
upon if how many games you're playing,
Exactly.
how many players there are, and also like who did win, who's up for best general.
Mhm.
Because if everybody is 5-1, yeah, it might be tough.
I was very concerned. So not concerned, but I think after round 5, there was 2 of us that were undefeated and like 4 others that that had a tie. So it was anyone's game. Like it could have been
Yeah.
any of us, which was nuts. That was honestly, I really like that. That was incredible. Just saying.
Yeah, and I really wanted to do the 6 games just to make sure we could flesh out. And I know it's hard because it's like I love 5-game tournaments. But once you start getting that, and the thing too is that like I'm not envisioning like just this event. I'm envisioning 5 years from now,
Mhm.
doing like 500 player, 600 player events. So where does that, how do we lay the foundation for that,
Okay.
right? And um, you know, but I had access to everything that the 40K players, the judges and TOs were doing for their event, and their event for the first time ever in the world history of 40K went over 1,000 players.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So they're thinking of things a lot differently than I am, and then there's a lot more of them to think about these things. So, but I took all of that into account. But I might go back and rethink it and go like, well, you know what? Are we there yet? Do we need to worry about that? And maybe there's other things we need to worry about.
I will
But
say, our buddy Gator, he actually was sleeping in my room, snoring like a madman. But he's the one that actually won the 1100 or 1080 player event. He won it. Awesome dude, like
Battle
fantastic guy.
Brothers.
He's one of our team battle brothers. So that's like the 40K team I'm on. It's called TBB. Um, but I think the sixth round is probably the best way because if you didn't, there would have been several people, and then maybe it just comes down to who had the best battle points or path to victory, as you said. So I think the sixth round does actually clean out the last person. So if you have enough players, you might only have one or two undefeated instead of like four or five. So it's not as feels bad. Um, I was going to add something
yeah,
Andy, I
else.
did have a display board. It was just overshadowed by Blue's giant castle.
I saw it. I saw it. And that was another thing that I did is that like in the past I've had a lot of I've taken a lot of paint classes. My friend Seth Abson used to do the whole painting thing for LVO, so I've taken a lot of paint classes. So I got some of the professional painters, like the Italian master painters, to come and take a look at everybody's army and give me their thoughts. And then we used that as kind of a tiebreaker. And to be fair, Blue, you also won best painted. Just you declined to take both awards.
Yeah,
You
you
felt
can't.
like maybe it'd be better. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't take both.
So
That's not fair, in my
so
opinion.
so it was a tactic that worked. He overshadowed everybody else's physically overshadowed everybody else's display
Well, I will
boards.
never. I only did like went all out with that because I have never been to LVO. So I said, "F it, I'm gonna bring all like the coolest stuff I can." But I will probably never do that again because it was a
Really
lot.
tough.
Yeah, I had to check 2 bags plus carry on. I had too much stuff. It was a bitch. Honestly, it was a bitch to deal with. It took like over an hour to
That's got to
set
be
up
like what, 45, $90 each way, $180 just to move your castle.
just to move my castle, and like that
Oh
is
man, that
that
was
is
awesome.
that's not worth it. I mean, it's cool. Don't get me wrong. It looks awesome. Everyone gets to see it
Right,
and
right.
everything. But I'm just like, my back hurts. Like the setting up takes an hour easy. Putting away takes even longer. So, like, I couldn't play doubles because I needed to put my stuff away. So like that's kind of a bummer. Um, but I did like 6 games. I told Andy day one that I was like, hey, if there's a sixth round, like I wasn't expecting. I was expecting to go like 4-2. That's what I was hopeful for. But I was like, hey, I don't want round six. I don't want to have to play like just because I want to put my stuff away and I want to start filming stuff for people. So uh, day one, it was like, hey, can I take the round six bye because we had an odd number of people. But then on day two, you come up to me and you're like, are you sure you want the bye? And I'm like, I'll take it, but it feels kind of bad if I'm like in the round. I don't remember when you came up to me. Was it round 4 or 5?
Yeah, round four, I think.
And
'Cause it was looking like you might be getting best general or best overall. So it was
yeah,
like,
it's not fair to just like, all right, I'm not going to play round six. I'm just going to take an 18 and not play and then
right.
win best general, best overall. That's not cool. That's not cool. In my head, in the like the dark evil part of my mind is like, yes, don't have to play and you win it. But I'm like, that's not fair. So I was like, all right, pair me up, let's go.
And
Um,
and there's some discussion too about us changing the way in which we do buys. I was talking to a friend of mine, Nick Nadavati,
Nick, okay,
uh who was discussing the way that buys are done with differentials in 40K, and I
mm.
think I have a better idea of how to do buys. So
I think 15's fine. I think
yeah, I
even
think
you could just
15
do
is
like
fine.
the average of all the wins of all the winners of that event or of that
Yeah,
round. It's more
that could
complicated
be
to do, but
sure.
usually a 15 is some like
I think 15 is
a
good.
minor victory is probably
Yeah,
cool to do, right? I
yeah.
think that's
It's
cool.
not like yeah, because they didn't really. It's tough because we definitely want to have a ringer for the first round
Hmm.
because I don't want anybody to get a bye the first round.
Yeah.
That's not fair for them,
Right.
especially when traveling to whatever event that we're doing,
Hmm.
traveling and paying for the event and for hotel and all that. So
Okay.
it's like you definitely don't want that to happen. But what happens when a player does, and that's why we're trying to take volunteers for a buy because it was looking like we were going to have buys.
Okay. I want to hear
So
about doubles run by Myles down here, and then I want to hear Ernan some cool. Actually, the both of these two played doubles. Actually, the TOs got to play in the doubles, so that's pretty cool. So first, I want to hear about Myles talk about the doubles and the cool missions you had, which actually sound very neat. I might apply those to my event that's coming up in about a month now. So yeah, let's hear it. What you got?
Yeah, sure. And just to like wrap up what we were talking about before, there's a
Please.
lot of these rules questions. There's a lot of these like how do you set up a tournament? But I just for anyone listening, if you're like, oh, should I go to an LVO in the future? Should I go to a big tournament like this? You should know that this is all the minutia, tiny stuff. Like the vast majority of the event, from my perspective, and I think most people would say it was just extremely seamless. It was like easy. You got paired with people. Everyone was super nice. There were really good games.
Hmm.
I was stunned by just how beautiful so many of the armies were. There were so many out of this world armies. Like it was really, really, really fun for that reason. So, don't second guess that for a second. I would say like, obviously it's important as a community we figure out some of these things. But it's like a minor thing in the scheme of the overall game. I think the vast majority of rules questions I saw were just simple, like, I forgot how this works. How does this thing work? Which is still because the game's only a year old and everyone's still, getting a hang of it.
Hmm.
I still look up rules like almost every game, I feel like,
All the time.
you're like, oh, what was it? 50% or less than 50% or more than 50% where you take a panic test if you're or like where you fully flee if you're falling back in good order. Like
Yeah.
there's so many of
Skirmishers.
these. Yeah, there's so many little things. So yeah, to dive into the doubles. So I think Andy had originally designed the whole event with doubles, but when I heard that they were like, going to be running that as well, I Andy asked me like, "Hey, do you want to help TO this event?" And I said, I really want to play. This is one of my first big events. I'd rather like give it a shot.
Hmm.
But you know what? I'll run the doubles event so that you can play,
Cool.
which I'm really glad I was able to do. And it was a huge blast. So, after two full big days, 6 games, I think a lot of people very reasonably were like, you know what? We're gonna take a break and not do the doubles event. Yeah, totally reasonable, especially if you're on those top tables and things. It was stressful. It's like it's a lot, right? But I think the doubles event really appealed, especially to some of the more casual players who had maybe gotten a little beat down by the very competitive lists at the main event. But this was just an opportunity to bring more fun lists, to try stuff out. We saw people bringing lists like demons, which they hadn't brought as their main army, which was really fun.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, so I created two simple rules variants, like two little missions, just as a way to sort of try things out a little differently and mix up the game a little bit. I didn't want it to be too much because doubles is already a bit extra. You're learning, oh, how do I work with my teammate? And it adds a little bit more to it. I think for our first round, we did one called like Fight for the Peak, which was basically just a normal battle, but you put a hill right in the middle in addition to all the other terrains. So it's a more heavily terrained board. And because there's a hill in the middle, you've got this sort of awkward line of sight blocking thing. Um, and you got extra victory points if you controlled it at the end. So pretty simple, straightforward, not that much of a change, but it's remarkable how little things like that can actually change the details of a game a lot. And I'd be interested to hear, from our other players if it did. The second one quickly, we called it Heavy Fog. And under the rules for Heavy Fog, we had a penalty to shooting, -1 to hit, penalty to magic, all casting rolls were -1.
I like that.
And then a penalty to movement. We made it so Swift Stride no longer works on anything that isn't fast cavalry. So this is also just a little bit of a way to see what would the game be like if there was less Swift Stride, as since it's such a dominant rule in the metagame right now.
Hmm.
And then finally, difficult terrain is dangerous terrain, which didn't come up very much except for that fantastic story that Ernan shared earlier, which is some of the fun stuff. So, we ran the event. I think we had 28 players on 14 teams. We played
Nice.
2 rounds. It was a very relaxed event. People had a lot of fun. We had a
People were
lot of really
drinking,
fun
chilling.
moments.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of great stuff. We had a Chaos Dwarf versus Dwarf grudge match.
Nice.
We had the Tomb Swarms and the rat swarms were fighting each other, which was a huge amount of fun. Yeah, we had a great mix of things.
Cool.
I learned that my Glade Riders don't have move through cover. So the forest attacked my wood elves.
Angry tree spirits.
Yeah,
Dryches in there somewhere, causing a stir. That's what's going on. The
that
I,
wild,
was a
the
lot of fun.
wildwood. Oh, that's what it was
The
called.
wildwood,
The
yeah.
wildwood. That's what it's called.
I said to myself, "Oh, teams events are my favorite events because you get to, you get two different armies usually that they complement each other or they just bring stuff that the other army doesn't." But I said to myself, teams events we're each bringing 1,000 points, no dragons. What do I run into in my first Dark Elf Dragon at 1,000 points. I said to myself, it was Dark Elves and Skaven versus me and my buddy Evan, who was running 2Ks. But even at 1,000 points, they'll sneak a dragon in on you.
That's so nuts.
And then the heavy
Jeez.
fog, we went up against double Bretonnian gun line. So combined, they had 3 cannons,
Bretonnian?
2 hell blasters. Yeah. Oh no, Empire. Sorry,
Yeah.
double Empire gun line. So combined, they had 3 cannons, 2 hell blasters, and 2 of those war wagons. And if it hadn't been for that -1 in the fog, it would have been a totally different game. Turns out some Mushapti inside woods at long range can put some damage on an entire Empire gun line when you need 7s to hit them.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
What about you, Andy? Did you have any crazy
Yeah,
things?
I got to team up with my friend Brian Pullen, and he brought his dragon because he doesn't really, he ain't pulling punches.
That's right. Doubles event. Dragons.
Yep. Our second game we played into, I think his name is Andy Rogers and Anton Goldman.
Okay.
Guys from LA back in the day. And so at one point we thought like, okay, I think we had the game, but a Bretonnian, it might have been a Duke. It was a Bretonnian lord who charged Brian's dragon, and he said that he hadn't rolled any 6s for Monster Slayer the entire tournament. And he rolls a 6 for Monster Slayer. And Brian needs to just roll a 2 up on his ward save. He rolls a 1. The dragon's dead. We decided to end the game there. That was awesome. So
The
I
dragon's
decided,
dead. Flee.
yeah. So I decided I'm getting the hell out of these terrible woods.
So he had the opal amulet. Is that what that was?
Yep.
Oh,
I think.
man.
Yep. So the once per game, single use, 2 up.
And that's what
ward.
you take it for. A cannonball.
Right.
If they don't have that, but a killing blow, and it failed.
And it
Oh,
failed,
no.
and so that was a perfect moment, perfect cinematic moment to end the game, and so that was a lot of fun. I really enjoy scenarios, and that's why I tried to add one to this year's LVO,
Okay.
which was pretty interesting because it's like I felt like a number of good players who might have been on autopilot had to really rethink how to handle that scenario, because an arcane ruin with magic resistance 2 for your unit, 750
Ooh.
points in the center of the board.
I forgot. It
That's
gave
not
that
something
R2.
you can ignore.
Yeah,
Can't ignore that.
we fed a unit to the dragon every turn. I said we had a unit on the hill, and I said we got to keep this guy tied up in combat forever, because he can just fly over there on round 6, plop his big old dragon ass down, and claim the hill. So where in a normal game you would be like a little bit more strategic, I'm like, nope, for king and country, straight into the teeth of that dragon. And buy me around if you can.
Yeah.
The next unit, you're next. So
Yeah,
we just tried to keep that dragon. We fed Evan's 40 archers block of skeletons into it. I've never seen that block anywhere else other than on a hill. But nope, straight into the teeth of that dragon, so we can keep them occupied long enough to hold that hill.
Yeah, 750 victor points is a lot. I mean, that is worth a lot of points. So if you just have a big nasty block of something, you could just sit on it. And then I mean, it was cool for. And I think in my game, it came. I was playing Matthew. I think he goes by Matt. I was able to. We had 1 turn left. If my Green Knight died, and the game ended, because was that the one where you roll to see if the game ends? Right.
Yep.
Okay. So even if my Green Knight didn't die, he would have controlled it. But I think it was only ending on a 1 or 2, and it wasn't a 1 or 2. So that let my my big Pegasus brick, fly right next to the tower, and it ended up as like a small win for me. And it might have been a draw if my Green Knight died and the game ended. So like just a couple little rolls like changed the entire game. And that was a good fight. I think so. I played Eric Hung in round 6. This was his first event, if I'm not mistaken, or his first GT, and he's actually a very good player. And I think given like a little bit more practice, like I'm not saying he knows what he's doing, but and I told him like just speed up a little bit, and if you can like be chummy and talk while you're playing, he's a force of nature. It's going to be disgusting when he actually like is able to do that because he knows exactly what he's doing, and it really came down to him failing a impetuous check. So his list was like 30 Sisters of Avalorn with the horn, and a level 4, and a dragon, another unit of 5 Sisters with the ruby ring, and a dragon prince block with the BSB. My only chance of winning this game, and literally zero chance. And I was talking to him about it. I was like, okay, I can either go for a draw here, but if I get a draw and Ernan to my right, which he was on my right, so let's just say this, to my right wins his game, I don't win, Ernan wins. So in Ernan and I, we thought we were going to play each other, but then I think based on the pairings, that's just not how it works. So I played Eric. Um, my one chance at this was to fly my Pegasus Knight unit up, have him fail a 4-up save for Impetuous, and his Dragon Princes charge me. If that didn't happen, and if he rolled a 4 plus, his 30 Sisters of Avalorn with all the magic missiles, Plague or Rust me, I don't have a word save at this moment, wipes my unit out basically his turn 2, because they hits on 2s, wounds on 4s at like AP 4 or something nasty. And I'm like, cool, my whole unit dies, all the characters die, and the game's over. And it was either that, or I play for a draw, might not even get a draw because he's teleporting them around and can and double move and all this other shenanigans. I'm like, well, I got one option to win this thing. And he rolled a 3. And he was forced to charge with his Dragon Princes. And he might have won combat if he also didn't send in his sisters. He forgot I had the horn up, so he couldn't charge his dragon. But we'll get rid of that. That doesn't sound as cool. It was basically a 50-50 shot to see if I win this game or if he wins this game. And it was incredible. Like his Dragon Princes, they got too nervous in the moment, and they were like, "Charge!" And they came in, maybe not that deep because they're high elves. Charge! And they charged in. They messed me up actually. Dragon Princes do a lot when they have that buff of it's like +1 attack, +1 strength or something. I think they have. I think that's the buff they got for magic. But man, good game. I think we only got to turn 3 because we basically called it. Because I won that combat, was able to overrun, so they couldn't shoot me at all. And then it was my turn, and then I charged the big sister block, and they basically died. But if he didn't roll that dice, I lose. So I'm telling you, it's a 50-50 shot, and when it comes to that. Did any of y'all have like a really close one like that?
That's Warhammer, right?
That's Warhammer, baby. That's Warhammer.
Yeah, I feel like that's just what's so great about these stories that you get these narratives from these moments, right? Where you're like, and that's what is missing in a lot of other games is those leadership tests, those break tests, those like sudden moments that can really make or break a game. And some games have it, some games don't. But I think it is what really makes these Warhammer games. For me, I mean, I already told the story about the pillar going through my army that, and then spiking and killing the wizard. That was
Nuts.
an amazing moment.
Mm-hmm.
We had the game against I had my game against dwarves against John where I made one mistake where I put my knights at such an angle that he got a bolt thrower to the side, and that bolt thrower had the rune that ignores armor.
Ooh,
So he hit it on a 5 and then killed 4 chaos knights in one shot. So that was a
ooh,
very effective bolt thrower.
nice.
And then followed that up with a catapult that landed directly onto my wizard's head and killed him as well. So you get some
Jeez.
crazy stuff like that happening, which is
Ugh.
always great. Um, and then yeah, I mean, just another story. I played against Jordan's Dark Elves with he had 2 dragons, right? My 1 dragon versus 2 dragons. We had a crazy game where we just kept failing charges. Like I would charge him and then roll really low and fail the charge, and then he would charge me and roll really low. And we had this middle of the board
Wow.
that was clogged up with units that were like in each other's way because everyone had assumed they would get their charges and then they didn't. And it's like that sort of mess where you're like, okay, what do I do now? Now that both of our plans are like all mixed up. I think that sort of thing is just so fun.
I love Warhammer.
I
Yeah,
had
my
a
very last game, poor Jamil, I played his Empire gun line with these really scary Demigryph knights, etc. And he managed to fail, I think, 5, 8, or 9 plus leadership tests in a row. So like
Ugh.
failed the terror test, fled away, somehow still on the board, then fails to rally, then flees off the board. His like demigryphs and wizard on a griffin charge my chosen. they whiff their attacks. I do slightly better. I win by 1. He fails 2 9+ leadership tests again, something
Mm.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then a low flee roll, so they get caught. Like stuff like that is just, it's just Warhammer,
Yep.
right? You never know what's gonna happen. Yeah.
I had the champion of my brick. The brick got charged by a dragon, and of course, they're going to challenge. And first up is that 4 unit champion, because
Mm-hmm.
those sorcerers aren't going to take that challenge. And I had the 5+ ward up on him, and through a combination of whiffs from the Lord and the dragon and the stomps, it was 2 wounds. The hero, he
Wow.
died, champion
Sure.
died, but he kept the combat res to 2,
Wow.
allowing me a fighting chance of not losing the entire brick and the sorcerers.
Was that dip, dive, duck, dodge, dive, something like that? That's what he was doing.
If you can dodge a hammer, you can dodge a dragon.
Yeah, that's right.
Everyone knows that. No, but I got you too, Blue. I lined up against that Bretonnian player who he lined up all the boatmen, so
Mhm.
I had to shoot up my up the flank, double fly, so that I could actually get some magic missiles in on the side.
Okay.
But to get blue fire is 18 inches away, and I said, hey, my intent is that I'm exactly 18 inches away from your peg knights, which, if anybody knows peg knights, that's
19 inches. That's their declare range. Yeah.
they're good. And he failed 2. I kept at 18 because I needed to be able to do my magic missiles, and back to back. Couldn't roll those 8s to get to me. Had he gotten to me, it would have been a totally different game. But that's Warhammer. I wanted to give a shout out to my 4th round opponent, Robert Canterman, playing Beastman, who
Nice.
of all the practice games I've had, I've never ran into the Viletide Hag Tree Fetish combo. I mean, talk about a
You're
way
gonna
to
learn
deal with
today.
dragons. I need to ally that guy into my army,
Yes.
because a unit of dragon ogres just disappeared out of nowhere, and the only person I've ever known to run a sorcerer on a flying carpet. Like, I don't know what was happening. His brave shaman was flying around on a flying carpet. I mean, I shot him down with some fireballs and blue fires each, but I totally forgot that magic item even existed. So
Yeah, it's like
Robert
I think it's like 50 points or something.
I enjoyed that game immensely. That was my favorite game by far.
Nice.
Great opponent.
He's a great guy. I actually had him confirm the numbers for the heirlooms and the shields to make sure. So I had to calculate which one was actually better: triple heirlooms or 2 heirlooms and a shield. If it does get the killing blow, Monster Slayer. The shield actually is a big push in terms of like math, of like statistics of which one's actually going to work. But
so he's a math teacher, and we're playing on we're playing that game. The guy you played, the young kid you played, was playing next to us, and
Eric?
he's calculating. Yeah, and he's calculating statistics the entire time. And I guess he didn't know that Robert was a math teacher, so he's telling us the statistics on all our moves, and I'm like, Robert's like, I'm the math teacher here. You don't have to. And of course, I'm like, don't tell me the numbers. I'm going to make this 11-inch charge. I don't need to know. I don't need
the dice gods.
I leave it all in the hands of the gods. I don't need the statistics.
Wait, was this the blackened plate that took like all the missiles?
Yeah.
Was it Robert? Nice.
Yeah.
That's so good.
I mean, I shot everything. I just wanted to scratch the paint a little bit, but that blackened plate, that's a thing of beauty.
I think this is what my wife's an analyst, so she always corrects me. It's probability. It's not statistics.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
I'm live streaming. I might mess up. I might blunder here and there.
I always called it statistics.
If we cared about those things, we wouldn't play craps. So.
Right? I love craps.
Man, Ernan, I will say you missed a great session on Monday night. So I know we're deviating a little bit from Warhammer. We'll come back in a second. The guy to my right, he rolled the small and the tall. I guess they call it the big and the little here. So that means he hit the all.
I got them separate. Yeah.
Yeah. So then it came to me. I rolled the tall, and then Ed to my left, he rolled the small. So the first guy rolled like 40 rolls. I rolled like 30, and Ed rolled like 20. So if you were there pressing like units extra each time, man, if people were doing that, there was one point It was a guy to the left of Ed. After all that, he rolled 9 9s and 9 5s
Oh
before
God, I wish I was on that table.
before a 7. It's like
Oh,
0.0002% chance of that happening.
that's when you make a few $1,000s real quick.
Easy if you're pressing. But no one at that table was really pressing, and I won't say the way I play because I might get hate for it. So
Against them.
I'm not saying
Don't
nothing.
pass.
I'm not saying nothing. I'm not
I tried
saying
it a little
nothing.
bit, Blue. I felt
Don't
dirty. I
come,
made some
don't
money. I
pass.
played your way a little bit. I didn't like it.
You
I
can't
made
play.
some money, but I didn't like it.
It doesn't feel good, does it? It doesn't feel good. Let's see. I did play against 2 Beastman players, and one of them had 2 level 4s with double Vile Tide. And okay, so that game, which game was it? That came down to me just rolling a good enough overrun. It was versus another Matthew. Actually, here it is. This guy had, I think we reviewed it when we were reviewing Army List on the other channel. And one of these came up, and we started with Beastman. I had to leave because aggro. But so 2 level 4s, both elementalism, and one had the Hag Tree and the Ruby Ring, etc. And he had a whole bunch of chaff, 3 units of 3 Dragon Ogres, 2 giant spawns. Disgusting, right? I was able to charge a unit of Dragon Ogres, and my option was this was the only decision I could make that could maybe win the game. Or at least help win the game, because he was just rushing at me and I had to try and get something. I charged unit Dragon Ogres. I needed to roll a 14 on the overrun to contact one of his wizards. And if I didn't roll that 14, I would have gotten double Vile Tided and one with Hag Tree and some other, Plague of Rusted, and then Fireball and Wind Blast. And my whole Pegasus unit is basically dead because I have no ward save, right? So I was able to make the overrun and touch the wizard. If I didn't make that overrun, my unit would have died. So that's what I think. I think I was talking to you, Andy, about this is the difference right now between Old World and 40K. 40K is you have 40 dice when your unit's like full health, 40 dice, rerolling to hit or +1 to hit with like if I roll a 6, it's sustained, so that means I get more hits on top, and then I can reroll to wound or I get +1 to wound and I get lethals. It's like you can count on your unit to do something. In Warhammer Fantasy, you're rolling anywhere from 10 to like 2 dice, so the variance there is insane. It's so swingy. There's not much variance in 40K when you have that much dice because the odds it just like checks out. But when you're only rolling 2 to 10 dice, it could be anything. So that's why you fail charges all the time, stuff like that. That's why I like Old World, because you can be competitive with it, and mostly the competition is the list building and the movement. And it's hard to, like, the dice are the dice. If you're not rolling a lot, so that's, I don't know.
Yeah, 6s really matter. It really matters.
Huge.
Every single dice roll really matters. Doesn't matter when you're rolling. You hit on 2s and re-rolling 1s. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You might as well not roll them.
Yeah, it's like, just tell me how many hit.
Yeah.
Just tell me how many I get hit. Now, don't get me wrong. I still love 40K. I still play it all the time, but it's definitely a different feel for me,
Yeah.
But that's just me. Any closing remarks? I think we've been going for almost 2 hours now. Is there anything else? Any questions or comments or anything from the chat?
Are you guys going to be at Adepticon?
Oh, yeah, good question.
I don't think I'm going to make it this time.
I don't think
I'd love
so.
to in the future.
I mean, I know it's in Milwaukee. I pulled the trigger. Chicago was just a lot easier, but like the trek to the Great White North up to Milwaukee.
I love Chicago, but it falls on my son's birthday. I think that's really why. Yeah,
Bring him along. Bring him along.
In a few years, I think. In a few years.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Because they're having on top of the normal GT. I signed up for a 3,000 point event. They have a 3,000 point 3-round event.
I'm really wanting to push these numbers up a little bit as soon as we get a good enough. Do like what Rob did, do a 3,000 point event, or just even a 2,400 point event.
Oh, so they would do 2,400.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm running Nova again, and it'll be. I might do a Masters. I'm not sure if FLG or GW is going to take that over. I don't know. But if they do, that's fine, and I'll just turn mine into like a doubles. But the Saturday, Sunday GT is 2,500 points with some comp and everything. But I'll be at Adepticon. I think it's at the end of March. Um, my event, it's called. I'm trying to make infantry good, so it's in a month. Let me look. Hold on. I'll post about it. It's going to be in a month, and it's going to basically buff infantry. I got swords all engraved and everything, and I have those cool medals I showed to Andy.
Ah,
Don't
it's
let me
awesome.
forget. I'll send you the link to that guy. I think it's a local person,
Yeah, that's
but
awesome.
yeah, I think that's cool. Thank you FLG for obviously supporting
Yeah.
LVO and helping them with terrain and everything else. Big help.
Yeah, we absolutely could not have done this amount of people without FLG's help.
Yeah,
And
looks like.
and to,
Sorry, go ahead, please.
yeah, and to not have Old World at the LVO would have been heartbreaking. Right. So yeah.
Now I was wondering, so it looks like they were handing out the awards. So we waited around for the 40K awards so we could watch Gator go up, and then we had another buddy Ed, who was playing Craftsman and everything. He got awarded some stuff for like ITC because it's like end of the year stuff. Will they move that like the Old World awards to that event, like towards the end, or is it better since the event doesn't end? The Old World event ended Saturday, probably to not make people wait around until Sunday evening. But I don't know. I don't know your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I don't uh, it will help us in the long run to stagger from 40K.
Okay.
Because if we can get people who are going to record things, if we're going to get professional people who are going to kind of come in and record things or stream things, that they don't do it on the day they're going to get 4 million, people watching their streams.
Okay.
So
Fair.
it definitely will help us to stagger things. But I'm not exactly sure how that all is going to work. I love old world rankings. I know FLG has their own ideas.
Yep.
And I know that 40K and Age of Sigmar, all of that end of year stuff is moving to Worlds in Atlanta. So I'm not exactly sure how things are going to go from
Okay.
here.
Okay.
I'd like to work with FLG as much as possible because they took a chance and started supporting us. So um we'll see how it all works out, I guess.
Okay.
And I guess we're flying below GW's radar for the moment,
Just
which
just enough.
yeah, is in some ways good, some ways
Okay.
bad, but some ways good.
So I think there's one last question, and then that I have on the chat, and then if there's closing remarks, if y'all have anything cool to say. But one thing was, what are some of your guys' favorite lists that did not make the top tables? Hmm. I'm gonna have to.
That double vial tide that I loved
Ugh,
that list. That
ugh,
flying carpet one. Oh, I looked at
definitely.
that and I was like, oh, this is fantastic. I
Uh,
really enjoyed reading that list.
let's my favorite list. If y'all have one, go ahead, please.
I mean,
I'm gonna
I
look.
was just hyped to see things like Chaos Dwarves. That was amazing.
Nice.
This did make the top tables, but Filippo's Dark Elves came fifth. I just want to call that out as a lot of people have been saying Dark Elves are one of the weaker factions, and I think they're sort of right. And yet, he got fifth place, which is amazing. That is such a like big accomplishment to do that with like basically a weaker army.
Yeah.
And I also, Ernan, your list having the chaos without the dragon. I think you said you set out to prove, hey, like you can win events without a dragon, and like I think you proved it.
Yeah.
Like I'm now like, oh, I gotta try playing some more chaos without dragons because from my perspective, I've tried chaos without dragons and struggled with it and gone, okay, you know what? Chaos sort of we're sort of stuck, right? We're in the situation where
We get
if you
used to
don't
it
run a
in that.
dragon, can
Yeah,
you beat other dragons?
Right.
yeah.
And I'm really happy to see that you figured out some ways to do that, so some ways to get there. So
I'm cooking up some more tricks. So
it's awesome, it's awesome, and I think
Oh.
that really just shows that the game, even though people look at it and go, oh well, the metagame's solved, and there's these top lists and there's these most efficient units and things. When you actually get onto the table and you combine everything together, stuff doesn't play out just like it does when you do the math, right? Like you can come up with these really clever things, you can come up with good strategies, you can really make things work. And I was really excited to see that at this event, and excited to see how the game keeps evolving and growing in these different ways. So yeah, I mean, like huge shout out to Filippo's with the Dark Elf list, but just in general, huge shout out to everyone bringing imaginative lists. And as I guess my closing remark, I'll just throw it in there as well.
Hmm.
Uh, if you are watching the show or something and you're someone who hasn't been to an event before and you're nervous about it, like I would say please go for it. It's so much fun. This is one of the biggest like warmer event I've had since I was like a teenager, and I had so much fun with it. Again, amazing armies, great opponents. lot of good games. I think the game, we talked about some of the like confusions around the rules and all those, but I really do think that that's at the edges of the game, and the core of the game is pretty great,
Yeah.
and we have so many great stories and memories. So
And just meeting new
yeah,
people that like run events and like have a good time. It's like this is what it's about. Like obviously I would have never met y'all, we never would have connected. Y'all wouldn't be on here. Like we wouldn't be able to like do some camaraderie. Like this is great. This is what this is all about. Trying to have a hobby that's like you really enjoy doing, and then once a year or maybe twice a year we hang out with them and we play games together. Like
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
like you get some
yeah,
drinks. Maybe we'll play some craps next time because now I know that
yeah.
you're a craps player. So like stuff like that. So it's awesome. I would have liked to see dwarves get towards the final table because there's so much hype about them right now. And they seem they can build some nasty lists. I see the two of the dwarf players were 3-2, and they both of
Oh,
their
they're definitely
games.
gatekeepers. They're definitely
Yes,
gatekeeper this. I
yes,
was I was surprised that we only had one Wood Elf player and not as many Mortuary Cult Tomb Kings. Like that's what the meta is down here in Florida. Like uh, all the big L's I've taken has been against Wood Elves, and but maybe now with the Pillar of Fire getting toned
yeah,
down a little
yeah.
bit on the sisters, and but the Mortuary Cult with their +9 to cast or whatever. That I mean that's I was fully expecting to
Yep.
hit that wall early and get stopped there.
Yeah.
And a shout out to whoever was playing the ogres with the I think maybe you guys gave them best custom model.
Oh,
Like they
Kenyon.
just had,
Yeah, that was.
yeah,
Hold on. Yeah, he was playing
it,
Beastman. He got the
Beastman.
best. He got the best, coolest one.
yeah. If you have pictures of those models were fantastic. Those conversions that he made. So
I forgot the name of his YouTube. Hold on, I'll find it.
Golden State. Something about
That's right.
something of the Golden State.
I'll find it. Where's it?
Oh, my
I know.
mind is
Well,
another
so
thing.
go ahead.
Another thing I might want to mention is that if you're thinking about TOing event, please do it because you'll have so many people coming out to support you, right? Like I thought, like okay, there's no way I'm going to do this alone, and
Glory
people
of
were
Golden State Gaming.
there. We go,
There we go.
and so many people stepped up to help. We even had a guy who had to drop because he had to work day one. Drew, he came out and he just TO'd with us. And so it was like we just had everybody
cool.
willing to like support and help, and it makes just such a great community. It's you'll have no problem TOing.
oh, one last shout out to my girlfriend Brittany. Thank you for letting me stay up late while I'm in bed with my phone light on, agonizing over magic items. She must have asked me 800 times whether the list was locked in. And on the day I finally sent it, she's like, "Stop changing your list." So thanks, Brittany.
Set it
awesome.
and forget it. Do y'all? Okay, I lied. One last question: are there any lists or armies that y'all are working on that either you plan to bring out to the next event, or is like what's a big change you think you should be in your current list, and are you working on something new? There you go. Starting with we'll go down, and then we'll go. Oh, I have to go backwards. We'll go around this way. So starting with Andy.
Oh, I'm gonna have to rethink my wood elves.
Mm, yeah, I
Yeah, I'm
like
gonna do some
Wildwood
tests.
Rangers. I like Wildwood
Yeah,
Rangers. Yeah.
yeah, I do, and I'm, you know, I like my Wild Riders as well.
Yep.
So I'm gonna do some testing. But yeah, I have a huge collection. I've been collecting those. I have like 3 Wood Elf armies. I have a 3rd edition Wood Elf army. I
Wow.
have a 4th and 5th edition Wood Elf army, and then I have my 6th and 7th edition Wood Elf army, which is basically what I'm using for Old World. So
Okay.
I'm gonna have to rethink how I play them because those were kind of my tournament list. But yeah,
Getting changed a lot with the Sisters of the Thorn losing,
yeah,
being able to pick a spell. It's like why even bring them now? Like, and the
and
4-up ward doesn't go to the caster too, so it's like a big like just hit.
the
Yeah.
scouting thing.
Oh yeah, how it counts against you. Yes,
Yeah,
also big
we'll
too.
see how we're gonna adapt that too. Because
So
that's one big thing that we don't know. If they meant it to be that they're like ghost bonuses, right, to your drops,
mhm,
or if they're actually like timed bonuses.
right.
So whether they're just like, okay, whoever wins the row, how many drops do you have? Okay, well, you won the row, you're gonna get a +1,
Yep.
right? Or if it's, oh, you've set up 6 units, I've set up 10 units. but you have a scouting unit, I'm going to get the +1.
Exactly.
So yeah,
It's
we'll
tough.
have to.
And
Yeah,
that's
we'll have
just a
to figure
TO
that out
call until they figure it out. I think that's just a TO call.
because
Right.
we love FAQs that make us
Confuse
think.
people more. Yes. Excellent. All right, on to Myles. What you got?
Yeah, I'm still on the Warriors of Chaos. I'm still working on my themed army, and I want to grow it out even further.
Okay.
I think I would love to just play around with more variants on the list, right? Like try out the how do you win without a dragon, right? Like how do you play that style? How do you play the really heavy magic build?
Mm-hmm.
Trying things like a warp fire dragon, which I think is a really interesting and
Yes.
powerful piece, but
Yes.
can be tricky as well because it's a little bit fragile,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of points. Trying the double gigantic chaos spawn is a really interesting one. And then Wolves of the Sea, of course, is
Yes.
super interesting as well. And there's a lot of interesting things you can do there. Just the fact that you can get the guaranteed or close to guaranteed
Right.
first turn using the duel is like a really powerful ability.
Mm-hmm.
So I think yeah, I think there's a lot of depth to chaos that I still need to explore and delve into and figure out, which is exciting.
I was running Wolves of the Sea for a bit. I ran them at the not the Richmond Open, but the Beltway Open or Beltway Bash. I can't remember what it's called. Sorry, but it was really cool to basically, if you fight a gun line, you're basically going first with the Wolves of the Sea. There's a build that I think is disgusting for the Huskarl dude. You give Corn, Flails, and you give them the Helm of All-Seeing Eyes. So you're striking first with 3 Strength 5 AP2 attacks, which is like your good chance you're going first versus another 1-wound model. It's just a nasty build, but you do get hampered because you only get one. You either get a Chaos Lord or a Chaos Sorcerer, so you can't do a level 4 and a Dragon. You can't, or 1 Demon Prince, but you probably wouldn't do that. So you're kind of hurt on characters a little bit, but your overall unit, just your army ability is pretty neat. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think it's definitely really interesting.
What you got, Ernan?
For me, I'm sticking with Warriors of Chaos, of course, but the lore familiar, not being able to take a lore familiar, know your spells, but then drop a spell for the signature blue fire is not legal anymore. So I will be sadly dropping lore familiar because and take a spell familiar and run the risk of randomness because that blue fire is of course clutch.
Right.
Rethinking a little bit the corn spawn now that it was either in the FAQ or was brought up to me a rules clarification. You can't double move a chaos spawn into combat.
That's a TO thing. Honestly,
yeah.
I think that's a TO thing. It's not rules as written because it's not rules as written or not written. So it's like
right. So
I think just to clarify, if I'm not mistaken, Arcane Urgency, the thing that's really ambiguous is can you Arcane Urgency a random mover like a spawn, right? That
Right.
part's really unclear. I'm pretty sure it does say with Arcane Urgency though that you can't charge with it, right?
No, I have the spell right here. It says effect. If the target friendly unit is not fleeing and has already moved during the movement phase, it may immediately move again.
Got it. But under random movement, it says if you move during the compulsory movement phase, you can move into contact with something. I don't think it says you can. I think it explicitly says if you move during the compulsory movement phase.
Probably true. Probably true.
Yeah.
If that's the case,
I mean, this
then
is the minutia of it, right?
Yes.
Right. So
yes.
so since that was clarified, I've played it that you can't double move the spawn, which kind of takes the corn spawn out of it a little bit. He doesn't have the protection that the Nurgle spawn does with the regen, so he might go back on the shelf. But for your event, Blue, I'm working on this giant halberdier unit.
Yes. It's your background kind of kills it, but I can definitely see what it is. Okay, so at my event, I am letting all infantry that's open or closed order gets immediate +1 combat res. Just they get flat 1, and they can attack in 2 ranks with supporting attacks. So if you're 10 wide, that means you get 10 of the front rank and 10 of the second rank. So you're attacking with 20 attacks if you want to attack a piece. It's basically like 8th edition where you have a supporting attack. Except if let's say I'm 10 and 10, so I have 20 guys, I get charged. You kill 5 of my guys, I get 15 attacks.
Good. So that's step up. It's like spears.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I hate step up. Okay, that's awesome.
And if you have spears, you're fighting in 3 ranks. So it's
I can't wait for pikes to come back into this.
Are they? Do you think like they're going to come back?
I don't know, but I'd like
It's
them
all
to.
good war.
I'd like the Pike to be back.
Yeah, like Talia coming back or something like that with
Yeah,
4 ranks of stuff. Or what's the other one? What's the Spanish one?
Stalia.
Estalia, thank you. If Estalia is back with like 4, or even a Dogs of War unit with like their freaking pikemen, because those things were like huge. Um,
Yeah.
I think that's it, guys. Y'all got any closing remarks? I think I had a blast. I love talking to y'all. This is great. I can't wait for next year. It sucks after wait the whole freaking year. But you might. I know Miles said he might come to Nova. There's a chance. There's a chance he might come. That
Yeah,
would
I
be
love
sick.
DC. I love DC. So
Could you come, Andy? Do you think you might make it? Maybe.
yeah, what month is it?
It is the weekend of Labor Day. Labor Day weekend. So it is the end of August. Is basically always on my birthday nowadays. So it's like the last weekend of August. If you can,
Yeah,
that'd be great. I'd love to
and
have y'all.
that's on my wife's birthday. I know
Well,
I know that
good.
there's
Bring her out. We can
Adepticon and
celebrate
Nova were
together.
always like
You know, we can happy birthday. No, that's fair. That's fair.
yeah. So I'd love to go to both. I'd love to go to Adepticon at some point. I'd love to go to Nova. So I have to see just what I have to do
Fair.
to allow to make that to happen. Make that happen. I think Nova being in DC and it's a town that I really enjoy being in would be a bigger pull for me since Adepticon is no longer in Chicago.
Fair.
Um,
Well, you
yeah,
could take a week off. You come up, play with us a couple days, and you show her around DC for the other 5 days. See, look, you're welcome,
that'd be cool.
Miss Garcia. Excellent, we did it. Well,
Thank you
thanks.
so much. Thank you
Oh,
for having us on the show.
of
For having
course.
us, Blue.
Thanks for running. Y'all did a great job. I can't wait for next year to see what happens, and I hope to see y'all soon. And keep in touch. We're all on Discords, and we're shoot the shit, talk some stuff, and send lists to each other. And all right, bye, guys.
Awesome.
Wait, don't leave
Thank
yet.
you.
Hold
Bye.
on. Let me see if I can remember.